Welcome to GROGTALK, everyone.
I'm Dan.
That's right, I'm James. And this is episode 17. What do you think about that, 17? It's crazy. They still want us to do more shenanigans.
Who's they?
We have, I know you're skeptical, but I have received emails. It's not a delusion. I will be happy to show you the emails that we've received.
I've heard of emails.
And on YouTube comments, you know, you can, I know you've kind of slacked on your comments on YouTube. We have a community out there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I have slacked. I'll try to do better.
Well, people like your insight. I think they're missing that. So, okay, good. We're on. I just need to check if we have sound.
I basically these 2 hours, I pretty much I'm exhausted. I've given all I can.
I have received email. Okay, there you go.
I've given all these 2 hours. I just basically.
This is it.
I give all I can give.
So
I'm spent.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's.
Well, you know, I give my all.
It's true. You're like a performer. Everything. You're like one of those reclusive rock stars, right? You
exactly.
sleep at home with your cats, and then you come out for the performance, and you go back.
Exactly.
Very good. Okay. Well, this is compelling. Okay, so today we're going to talk about artifacts. Did they call? Is the grog line? I'm ready.
The grog line? Who's Sweden calling?
That's right.
Yes. Let me see what's happening here.
No, there's
anything happening.
No, there's nothing here. We don't have anyone calling from Sweden at this point.
No, something about a tennis tournament.
Okay, so yeah. In the last of our segment, we'll go over what's been happening with the podcast because our fans, we have fans.
We want an award. We want an award, didn't we?
Yes, that's right.
No, it's not true.
No, we did not win. It's an award to us. Some random internet site has told us we have ranked in a country that we mutually respect, Sweden. It's a good country. So we'll talk about it more. That's a teaser. We don't want to share that, but at the end, maybe in Jezebel's corner. That's when Jezebel is kind of a self-promoter. Maybe we should just use that as our 2 minutes of self-promotion.
We should go to Sweden. Well, we'll wait to talk about it.
Okay.
I think we should GROGTALK on the road.
On the road, right.
The tour.
World
2019.
Tour. World tour.
We'll just go to people's houses. They'll have us and we'll set up and yeah.
That's right. I think if we went there would at least be one or two. It's there's a very generous world of D&D community and role playing.
So send money.
Send money, yes, and that's another thing we'll have to talk about at the end too. Sending money. I have to say.
You may want to talk about that sooner rather than later, because I've seen the stats on how many people make it to the end.
That's right.
Not good.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Not good.
That's right. We could be different. Everyone else does that at the end. Please like and subscribe. Okay, for those who are not going to make it to the end, please like and subscribe. Please comment, thumbs up. We appreciate all that. That gets more reach and helps us meet our goals, which is to help folks play and run tabletop role playing, in particular in our case, AD&D, but other games as well. So on our Word of Recall segment, we're talking about artifacts. We were supposed to talk about it last time, but shockingly, we went long. We talked about scrolls. Everything you want to know about scrolls, we talked about.
Right. The only segment I think was longer was when we talked about doors.
Doors and scrolls. Yeah. When you think of all the important things in a D&D, you're trying to explain to the new person or your spouse or someone, what is Dungeons and Dragons like? You always start with the doors and you close with the scrolls.
Right.
That's what you don't talk about. Your hero, zero to hero, everything else. People don't want to hear about that. So, artifacts. Now we were talking
relics. Because there's a difference, right?
I think there is. I know they're called different things. I've always just said artifacts, but you're right. It's technically artifacts and relics.
Because if you look, it says all artifacts. Yeah, they're different. We can talk about.
Well, let's start with that. So, Dan.
No, stop that. I'm going to ask you a question. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, Dan had reminded me that when in his D&D DMing experience, because he's been playing a bunch of single session modules from Judges Guild and these type of events, there really isn't a campaign. There has not been a whole lot of time to use artifacts and relics. So what is your understanding, at least high level? What's an artifact and relic? How does it at least differ from your perspective between a normal magic item, from what you understand?
They're crazy powerful.
They are crazy powerful.
You should.
That's good.
You shouldn't be seeing an artifact or relic probably. And we're going to ignore the fact that I place an or maybe we're going to talk about the fact that I place an artifact in a game where you guys are like level, I don't know, are you 3? I think you're 3 at that point.
Okay.
We can talk about how the artifact. See, this is important. What artifacts can do is lead to total party kills.
Right.
So that was my experience as I DM'd, and I put an artifact in there, and I said, look, these guys are veteran players. They will know how to handle an artifact, and then of course, it led to a total party kill. That's how I see the causation occurring there. But
if you want to ruin your party, put an artifact.
An evil artifact.
Yes.
Well, am I supposed to put like a do not touch sign on it?
Yes.
I am.
Apparently.
I forgot.
Yeah.
So artifacts and relics are, think about Excalibur over. I know Excalibur is a sword, so I guess it wouldn't count. But the ring.
That's right.
Exactly. In Lord of the Rings, extremely powerful magical items that usually I think would be the source of, would be the subject of a quest, right? To either to find and destroy, right? So the ring in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, which by the way,
all rings, wouldn't they? All the rings would be artifacts and relics. The 9.
The 9, the 7 for the dwarves, right? How many for the elves? And
yeah, was it 3 for the elves? It's 9 for the men, of course, because the men are weak,
right?
And they, we know what happened.
Covet power, but well, it's interesting because that is the prototypical one. This object magic item. Because there are other magic items in Lord of the Rings, and even in that game, in that setting, they have some legendary qualities. All the swords were pretty much named, they had a history, spent a lot of time. It's not like here in D&D and other games where a lot of the magic items almost become commodities. They're basically ways to affect the stat. They really don't have a legendary, which is something you can decide, like we talked about in styles of play. You don't have to do that. You don't have to give out a bunch of magic items. You can instead have fewer magic items that are more legendary, that have a history and a background, and this way they have especially. But in first edition, artifacts and relics are in the style of the One Ring, which is it's a legendary artifact. It drives the story forward. It is one of the main reasons for the story. Mm-hmm. It is the reason for the story. And it really is not, it's implied, I'm sure if I read all the Tolkien books, as it's presented in Lord of the Rings, and particularly I haven't read that in 30 years, but I read The Hobbit recently, but as presented in the movies, the ring is not, it's an invisibility ring. It doesn't sound, and, oh, by the way, it lets the evil protagonist or antagonist know where you're at, but besides that, it doesn't show why it's a ring of power. I'm sure in other things it does. So from a artifact perspective, it's not super powerful, but it is at least perceived and the way it's described. It is the ring. It will control the destiny of.
Don't give anything away.
Oh, okay. No spoilers. So
too soon.
Right.
Only in 60, 70 years.
So that's right. What came out in 50-something?
50s, I think, right?
It was 50s.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's good news. I think it came out in the 50s. I don't know if it did that much. And later in the 60s and 70s, it became much more of a revival. So our podcast, we may be like great artists. We may not live to see the value of this, podcast.
Yeah, what would be nice if something could happen that could give renewed interest to Lord of the Rings. Something.
Right.
Because, what could that possibly be?
Something. An animated.
Animated. That one was terrible. Yeah. That was awful.
Well, that's another.
That was us. That's what we got.
Right. We got that.
When we were young.
Right.
We got that.
I remember that going when my that was a big to-do. We put on our finest and went to Manhattan, and when I lived in New York.
That was a loss of innocence moment. When when the Lord of the Rings movie came out, or an animated one.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to know the difference between an artifact and I'm going to quiz you. I'm going to go the Socratic method on you. If you want to know the difference between an artifact and a relic, where should you look?
In the Dungeon Master's Guide.
And where?
Under Magic Items Special.
You should go to the glossary.
Oh, That's
People forget about the glossary.
You know, and actually the glossary that should be our third suggestion. Glossary.
Oh, that should be my suggestion. Well, all right.
Okay, that would be great.
The glossary. That's
no, and the reason I bring that up is because magic resistance is in the glossary. It's really nowhere else described.
Well, and you know,
glossary.
And death. You know, there's a definition of death in the glossary because you know there's this issue of when does death occur?
Metaphysical death, spiritual death. Oh no, it's just death in this game. I got you.
Yeah, 0, right? And see, it creates confusion because it says are optionally -10, which I know. Well, we should do a death segment,
right,
later.
Well,
right?
We have incomprehensible death. That is our segment. We've talked about that.
Really?
Last week.
We only have 17. I forget what we've done.
This was literally 7 days ago. We talked about incomprehensible death when you read the scroll and it killed you.
Oh, I meant like how many hit points. And,
well, but still incomprehensible because if you read the glossary, it goes from 0 to -10.
That's what you mean by incomprehensible death. Gotcha.
Anything that's confusing, which again in first edition, there's many areas for that. So, artifacts and relics.
Okay, I'm going to read the definition. I don't know what it's going to say.
Okay.
So this is new to me too.
I did not. In my research, I didn't even think of the glossary. So this is good.
One for Gormansky. Okay, an artifact. You want to guess at what the difference is, if there is, before I read it? And I don't know. So.
Well, if I recall, relic. I'll start with relic first because you know in our quote-unquote real world, a relic is usually something either held closely or a part of a person, of a saint, or some very powerful creature. So, to me, that's what a relic is. An artifact is something that was crafted by either the gods or someone else to either codify their power or something to that effect. So that's what I would guess if I didn't have.
All right, well, let's see. An artifact is defined as a magical item of tremendous power fabricated in the distant past. So it's got to be old.
Okay.
Right? It has to be magic.
Yeah.
These are the elements.
I like it.
It has to be magic. It has to have tremendous power. And it must have been fabricated in the distant past. Not just the past, distant past.
Right.
Okay? Relic. How do you spell relic?
R-E-L-I-C.
Thank you. It's a magical, it has to be magical. It must be a holy item.
Holy item, interesting.
Of great power. Is there a difference between, which is tremendous and great?
Oh.
What's the difference between tremendous and great?
Do you have that in our definitions for in our rules?
No. Usually extremely old. So a relic doesn't have to be, well, it says usually extremely old. Does that mean at least has to be old? It's not clear.
Right.
And usually extremely old?
Usually extremely old.
But it doesn't have to be extremely old.
We need to parse that sentence. Usually extremely old versus distant past.
So fabricate, yeah, so if you think about it, one could argue, if one didn't want to nitpick, because why would one nitpick in first edition AD&D?
Right.
You could say, look, artifact is fabricated in the distant past, and relic is usually extremely old. That's basically the same thing.
Artifact is... sure about that?
No, I said if we weren't going to nitpick.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, I got you.
Artifact is tremendous power, and a relic is great power. So let's say there's really no difference there if we're not going to nitpick.
Great. Then, both magical.
Artifact is magical. Relic is magical. Artifact is just an item, but relic has holy in front of it. So the only real substantive difference, if you're not going to nitpick, is that relic has holy in front of it.
Right.
I don't really know what the difference is.
And
that didn't help me at all.
Is holy defined in the glossary?
Probably not. Holy, unholy water.
Okay. So it's so only well. This is interesting because if you go with holy and you with holy water, you usually connotate that with good. So
what's prepared by
have to be good.
Well, it's prepared by a cleric.
Yeah.
Holy water is prepared by a cleric. Well, and unholy.
Right. Unholy water would be typically for evil. So holy water would be good. Does that mean the relics are good?
Pretty good argument.
So there's a couple of things you're going to have to work on because if you're all noticing, for those who've listened, there seems to be a lot of work that gets dumped on me. The only real response you have two responsibilities in this endeavor. One is to show up, which you do faithfully, so I appreciate that. And you bring your A game, which is also good. The second,
you assume this is my A game.
This is your A game. Well, I've spent enough time with you. This is your A game.
You've never seen me better.
That's right. This is
as good as it gets.
Yeah, based on the DMing in the evening, This is great.
If you're hoping this gets better, it won't.
That's right. This is the top. In fact, that's why people stop halfway through it, because they're like, this is as good as it's going to get.
Right.
If
It can only go downhill.
Yeah.
I can only be disappointed.
Right. This is, well, I've seen it. There's going to be another hour and a half of this. I got it. The other thing is you and I, but you initially, but we worked together on it, was provide rules and definitions for our Grognard's Guild, correct?
That's true.
And there's a 20-page missive on the rules as we are going to play it on.
It's in progress, but yes.
Right, but it is a work. It is like a Wikipedia thing. It's a living document, but it is canon, right? It's canonical to our and so I already see we need a timeline to define distant past versus usually extremely old.
Well, and the first thing you have to, I think, talk about is whether or not usually extremely old means that it can be quite new, or it has to be at least old. Does it have to at least be old?
I think you need to have a timeline that shows, like the Mesozoic period, all the periods you have today, past, and then this is something you're going to have to do research on. Go to Dragon's Foot and find out old, maybe very old, and then somewhere like maybe a period called usually very old. It wouldn't be one time, because it could be from old to very old. And then distant past. Where's distant past on this timeline? So that's one thing. And then you have to do magic items. You have to say tremendous magic item, powerful magic item. What's the difference? And the reason I bring this up is because we had, did you ever define the different evils? Moderate evil, absolute evil, relative.
We haven't talked about that. Should we? We should probably do a
podcast on detect evil. On evil?
That's pretty narrow, but we talk a lot. I was going to say more like paladins and
okay,
or turn undead or something like
paladins
that. Right?
And the undead. We can just talk about the undead. That would probably be better.
The undead. You know what? I bet you that'll get a lot of views just based on the title.
I like it. The undead.
Don't you think?
That's right. The Orlando undead. They were good too with In Escape, Incomprehensible Death.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
You mean in '87?
Was that 87? Because you said in '82 you saw him in Berlin with Destruction.
Yeah, when I saw him in '87, they really were just
they became more
was a different lead singer.
They were kind of moving away.
The hair.
Yeah,
it was embarrassing.
Yeah, they had synthesizers, and that's after they took
not
synthesizers.
Good.
That was the end of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to this. What we've figured out is practically there's no difference.
Yes. So so I wouldn't spend a lot of time. If your players are giving you grief, is this an artifact or a relic? Right. I would tell them to parse the glossary.
Right. Well, and that's something I missed. So that's just why we work together on this. Or we work independently, then we come together and we learn different things. I did not even look at the glossary, so that's great. So first thing, so if you go, all this is in the Dungeon Master's Guide, so we're pretty much going to be in here. So if you go to page 124, this is where it's listed. This is, again, the magic of the game. When I remember looking through when I first got the Dungeon Master's Guide, is from page 120 to 125. These tables, what would you roll? What kind of magic items were available? Until later, when I started thinking about my own magic items, and this was the whole. That's one of the great things of Dungeons & Dragons, is the variety and the complexity of the magic items, and to know that a lot of them were built by the original players in TSR, and that they came up with these, which is pretty amazing.
Why isn't there just a dagger +1?
Why is there just a dagger +1?
Just dagger.
Well, there's no
+1.
quarterstaff in here either. Remember, we were talking about staves last time. You can't roll a quarterstaff +1 on these tables.
Yeah, or a dagger +1.
Or
just straight +1.
Oh, that's true. That's right. So the reason I bring this table up on page 124 is a couple of interesting things. It's table 3E, special. So it says special, which again, these are the artifacts and relics. I don't know why they just didn't say special - artifacts and relics. But it has a couple of things that are very interesting. One, the gold piece value. You notice that most of these are way more, they're worth more than that. The second thing, there's an asterisk which says there's no experience points value. So these items, even though they're super ultra powerful, you do not get any experience points as a party. Now, I guess the question would be is if you sold them, which again, that brings up an interesting conversation how you would sell them. you would get experience points. But if you just acquire them and keep them, you do not get any. So the other thing that I just realized, I thought you could do this, but apparently you can't, which makes sense, is we didn't really go over this, how to create an encounter again, which I think is another thing we need to do, how to develop your own dungeon or encounters. So if you were going to do it randomly, what you would do is you would go using the random encounters in the Dungeon Master's Guide. They would figure out what monster that you were going to roll for it. And then you would do the treasure type, right, like we did.
This is fascinating. So what you're telling me is I didn't even thought about this. So there's a way to get, you do the treasure type on the monster to end up with an artifact or a relic as the result?
Well, that's what I just figured out. No, you can't. I always assumed, because if you look on page 121, that it has the lists of magic items that you're supposed to roll for. So what happens is on the appendix of the monster manual has the treasure types. And it says maps or magic, and it'll say something like any 3, 30%. So if you roll under 30% on your percentile, and you had treasure type A for your monster, which again is listed in the monster, it says, oh, you have any 3. You would then go, you start with treasure, random treasure determination, which is on the top of page 120. You'd roll percentages. You say, oh, it's a magic item. If it's a magic item, then you go to magic treasure, which then you'd have to figure out what that is. You go to magic items, number 3. You cannot roll an artifact or relic. It's special, which I don't know why I never saw it, but apparently it's always been there. I just assumed you always could. And looking through here, there doesn't seem to be a way to roll it, which again makes sense, because what you're going to find as you peruse the artifact table, or the special table as it's called, is that these are not like when Dan described them as being ultra powerful or super powerful. They're super powerful, and so players are immediately wanting to get them. So I think what we need to describe is how artifacts and relics work. They are items that should not be randomly found. But I always assumed you could, and just when I did our research, I'm like, no, you can't. You cannot just roll for them. You have to place them.
Because you're right. Because it would have to say you'd have to have an entry for miscellaneous magic E special.
Right.
Because it stops at E5, which is, well, it's just miscellaneous magic. But at E5 it jumps to F.
Right.
So the fact that it says special right there is what's going to suggest that it's not going to end up being included, because all the E's, everything's got a letter.
Exactly.
And that doesn't, right? A, B, C, D, E, 1 through 5, F, G, and H. And it's E special. So yeah, that's right.
I couldn't figure out a way. Now, if one of our fair listeners knows a way to randomly create it, I think the point of it is that you can't. I just assumed you could.
I like that, but that makes sense though, doesn't it?
It does. It makes perfect sense. But I just assumed, you could roll for it. But no, you can't, because unlike normal magic items, which again is really up to you, these items are supposed to be legendary. They're supposed to be found in certain ways, hidden away. You're not supposed to just stumble upon them, unlike the ring in The Hobbit, which again, you could. They didn't know it was the one ring. That's certainly a mechanic that you can use. But the idea is almost like, when, was it Perseus, right, going to Medusa or whatever, you're going to a forbidden place, you go there and you get the whatever thing that you went to defeat there at that point. You have to get Medusa's head. Let's say that's a relic. You decide that's a relic. So you have to defeat this artifact. Is it a relic? Well, it's not holy, so it would be an artifact. But artifacts feel like they're created. See, relics to me is like, the thigh bone of St. Cuthbert or something. It's not they didn't make that, but okay, I digress.
Maybe Google answer. You keep talking while I Google.
Okay, so the point of this is first of all, they're optional. So in page 156, it says, please note, you don't need to use any of these. And I think most dungeon masters have shied away from them. They've shied away because they're fearful of either killing the party or giving the party such power that that it breaks their game.
Okay, I don't know who's answering this. An artifact is an object made or shaped by human hand, while relic is that which remains, that which is left after loss or decay, a remaining portion.
Right.
So a relic. But that's not really what the relic is being used here. It's not something left over. Relics aren't. This is like a relic of the past. A relic, right?
No,
Like,
but the relic in the holy sense is, you know, the third canine tooth of Saint blah 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 of whatever. And then they venerate the relic there. You know, the thigh bone of Saint Cuthbert of that. So, for instance, if we were going to look at these, the Eye of Vecna
yeah, I see
would be a relic because
Right.
it's part of the creature, whereas Machine of Lum the Mad is a artifact. It was created in an ancient time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because artifact says it's fabricated.
Yeah.
So the fabrication, is that the difference? So an
Right.
artifact is made.
Right.
A relic remains, right? It's
that's
not
right.
really right. So like a part of, okay.
Part of something or someone that was left of it. That's right.
Very good. Okay. Does that line up with what you initially said?
That's.
I can't remember.
I feel well. What I say is so compelling to you, you kind of go, ignore it.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
I didn't know you were a hockey fan.
I'm a Bruins fan.
You are. Well, now get out.
Well, when they do well.
Okay. Very good. So
Okay.
they're optional. They're very powerful. They should be hidden away, and they should drive your story. And so they are. The other thing that's fascinating about them, and when I was whatever age when I got this, I thought this was extremely cool, and I still think it is. If you notice, it's one of the few places. It's not the only places. I think the Deck of Many Things may have it too as well. If I recall, we're flipping pages, and we're flipping. No, it doesn't.
That's a very DMG kind of thing. We're flipping,
and we're flipping, and we're flipping. We're not using our technology. What we notice here is under each setting there are blank spaces.
Do you know why there's blank spaces?
Tell me why there's blank spaces.
Well, do you know? I don't think this is the answer you're looking for. I'm kind of jumping ahead. You're actually supposed to write in the DMG.
Right.
Did anyone do that?
No
I have an
way.
old copy. It's not written in. Is this because no one got to artifacts, no one used artifacts or relics, or because no one wanted to write in the DMG?
Yes and yes.
I think that's a little bit of both.
I think for us, the idea of, and this again is interesting. We just didn't think about this being our world. The point of what Dan was saying is, there are tables. You're supposed to basically tailor the artifact for the campaign that you're running. Even though, of course, TSR wanted you to run the Greyhawk campaign, your Greyhawk campaign was supposed to be different than Dan's Greyhawk campaign was supposed to be different than my Greyhawk campaign versus someone else's campaign, and that when you rolled and when you decided that, for instance, Axe of the Dwarvish Lords was going to be in your campaign, that your Axe of the Dwarvish Lords would act different than Dan's Axe of the Dwarvish Lords, so that again, it's part of that style of so that the players don't know the power of it or the specific power. And if you've been playing first edition, you have players who've played a long time. You hand out a sword of whatever, they go, oh yeah, it's +2 against this, +3. They know all about it because it's always the same. This was a mechanism to say, oh no, you don't know. It may know some of the things, but some of its more powerful things you won't know until they are found either by you, which goes back to our identify and passing the pearl and legend lore, or you actually have to use it. So a artifact is a powerful thing that should be placed deliberately by a dungeon master for the purposes of either the story for the module itself or the adventure or for the campaign. They are unique to your campaign, and you were supposed to physically write down. I guess the thing is, your Greyhawk campaign would never change. These would always be this way. And the thought of marring your book to have this was the only Axe of the Dwarvish Lords just seemed like we wouldn't do that. We would just keep it separate.
And it looks like you as the DM are supposed to pick these. So this is not randomly rolled, right? Because these are just a bunch of letters.
Well, that's an interesting point. I always rolled for them, but I don't know if that's the case. That's a great question.
Because there's not numbers. It's not like there's percentile numbers.
And we're
here.
flipping again. So
what you would do, there's spaces after each one.
And page 162, go ahead, is where these powers are.
And there's minor benign powers, major benign powers, minor malevolent powers, major malevolent effects, and 5 is prime powers, and 6 is side effects. And each one, most of them, not all of them, but a lot of them have, each one of these categories, and oftentimes multiple from each one of these categories. And so, you got to fill it in. And so you roll, but you would have to figure out, because it's like table 1, minor benign powers is A through double X. You'd have to figure out how many there are and figure out what.
There's 26 and 22 is 48, so you'd have to come up with like a D100 and divide by 2 or something like that.
Yeah, right. Which suggests to me, at least, that Gygax's intent was not that it be randomly rolled.
And this is what's great about going through what I knew for 30 years. I just changed that too, because I always would roll it randomly. I didn't even dawn on me that this is not meant to do it. But if you read, you're supposed to...
You must select and record.
Right. That's right.
You must select, i.e. each item has several powers and or effects. You must select. You must.
Right. You must select.
Well, are you selecting? If you're doing it randomly, you're still selecting. It's a different way to select.
Exactly.
Like when my cleric, I would randomly roll what spells I was going to learn that day. I was still selecting.
It's arbitrary, or somewhat arbitrary, but it's selecting.
I think it's probably the defation of arbitrary, isn't it?
Well, as long as you did it arbitrarily, yes, I would say so.
Well, it's a random.
Right.
Seems pretty arbitrary.
Relatively random, exactly. Which paragraph is that on? Because I read it and then I missed it.
Oh, it's at the end. It's this paragraph at the end of descriptions or 5 tables.
That's right. These must be discovered, blah, 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 blah. Each item is described, and each item has 7 powers that you must select and record in the copy of your book. Yeah, so I just converted these to, I just assumed it was an idiosyncrasy of why we use letters versus numbers. And maybe it was that you would just put, for the handwriting challenge, you just put A, B, C, D in the things, and you'd go back to here if you wanted.
Oh, that's true. Sure.
So anyway, I would always convert this to some kind of number. So the point is, you have looked through these, you find something that's appropriate for the story you want to do. You then select it either randomly or not. Again, I would lean towards Dan's interpretation, reading it again with 40-year-old eyes, almost 50-year-old eyes, that you were supposed to not make it random, because again, it goes back to, you can't randomly drop an artifact in here based on what we understand. Why would you randomly pick the powers? This is supposed to be crafted for your world.
Though I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of random.
I agree, and that's
I think it's a lot of fun.
Right.
Because as the DM, I think a lot of times as a DM, I enjoy seeing things happen randomly as opposed to me controlling everything. I think sometimes if I do things randomly, I am more just sort of that umpire. I'm sort of a participant as opposed to the god who is making everything happen.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons why I am a fan of random monster checks too. I kind of like that too. It's outside of my control.
Right.
I'm sort of watching what happens. I'll adjudicate what happens, but stuff is happening beyond my control. And so, I like the idea of randomly rolling. I think what's interesting is you used to randomly roll, and now like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that. I assumed you wouldn't randomly roll, and now I'm like, hey, I kind of like that idea.
Right.
So I've convinced you. You've convinced me.
It's just another...
Are we supposed to?
We're supposed to hug right now.
I think we are.
We have to turn the stream off just to hug this out for a second.
Be right back.
We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I can cut this later. Yeah, that was great. So, but I agree with that, because I think we tend to fixate. It's the same thing with, if you don't do magic item selection. Our brains can only hold so many data points, and we self-select to those data points. Mm-hmm. So push comes to shove, I need to put a sword +1, longsword. That's what I'm going to put down. Whereas if you roll it like, oh, okay, no, yeah, that would be kind of cool. Now, again, you should always override it if it doesn't make any sense, but at least you get some juices that you wouldn't get if you did that
Like
way.
if you got the push spell. If you were rolling your magic keys and you got the push spell.
I've said this before, that has not changed. I'd push myself off a cliff at that point. That's still...
Can you cast that on yourself?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, okay.
I think you could self-hurt. It's almost was at the Chevy Chase thing where you help yourself fall down the stairs, like the old Gerald Ford skit that he did back in the 70s. How's that?
Really showing a razor, yeah.
So,
go blue. I went to Michigan.
He went to Michigan?
Pretty sure, didn't he?
Chevy Chase or Gerald Ford?
Oh, please. Gerald Ford.
Okay. I don't know, because if you know that Chevy Chase went to Michigan, that's pretty good.
Terrible.
I feel like Gerald Ford went to Michigan. That sounds about right.
Right? I think he played football there, didn't he?
I feel like, I think anyone I thought that was like a requirement to be president at one point. You had to play football at a school like that. Anyhow, for those, and for the rest of the world, that is American football. I apologize.
Jefferson didn't seem athletic.
I'm sorry?
Jefferson didn't seem
I
athletic.
feel like he played, I think they all did at a certain point. I think it was part of the tradition. So you have reviewed the items here. And again, many of them are tied directly to the world of Greyhawk. So here's the other thing. These items were play tested, quote unquote, from the game that that either Gary Gygax and his extended family / friends created. So there's that tie-in that makes it special too. So you decide. So one of the classics, which I think everyone has had or at least seen if you've been in any homeroom, is the Eye and Hand of Vecna.
I have no idea what those are.
Really? You've never... In fact, there's modules based on the Eye and Hand of Vecna that came out later in 2nd edition.
Well.
And 3rd edition and 4th edition. It's one of those that like Two Mahars. Two Mahars has been redone every time.
What edition are we on of D&D?
17th.
Wow.
Yeah. Every 2 years a new one comes out.
No, I don't know. I don't think I ever got I think I got 12th level. That's pretty darn high.
That's pretty high.
That's really high. No. Yeah. I need to talk to our DMs. They never threw any of this stuff in there.
Well, because it's complicated. It was always felt like I didn't do it because you had to really do it seriously. We took these pages, at least I did, 155 and 156, very carefully. That they could be world breakers many times, and that if you play them right, at least per the description, you could damage the party. Mm-hmm. Again, with the understanding of the Fellowship of the Ring, if we remember it right. They had a group, they got together, and they started having problems once they realized what the ring was capable of.
Okay, easy.
Oh, I'm sorry, giving spoilers out? Yeah. Okay. For those who have not seen them... Okay. What is the Venn diagram of people who are watching this podcast and have not read, or aren't they directly on top of each other? Is there any space between them? Of someone...
Call in if you've not...
Right.
If you've not read or seen Lord of the Rings.
Right.
So what I thought was interesting is that about half of the discussion in the DMG is about foisting an artifact off on a hireling or a henchman to try out.
Yes.
Which is what you guys should have done, because you picked up the artifact, it was evil, and you had to do save or die, and Doug didn't make his save and he died. So,
but I would never do that, because I read this as a DM. I would be like, no henchman. I know it's just like I know if you roll like whatever, a 5 for reaction instant attack, I know if you give it to a henchman, they're supposed to either kill you with it or dominate you or basically never talk to you again, if I remember correctly. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, what henchman would take? So I guess the idea is you come upon an artifact or a relic. I guess you have to know it's an artifact or a relic, and presumably you've been in search of it. So, right. I mean, the sense I get is, I mean, as you mentioned, you're not going to find it in a stash of treasure typically. You know it's there. It's very hard to find. You found it. I assume it's sufficiently impressive that you know what it is, right?
Right. You're searching for the Codex of Infinite Planes. In the distant past, the high wizard priest of the Isle of Woe, now sunken beneath the waters of near Div. See the World of Greyhawk from TSR.
Yeah.
Discovered the work and used it. So he discovered it. So it's really ancient. And so somewhere the Archmage Zunk described the following fragment prior to his strange disappearance. So this is some of the legend that your party would have to discover, and they would decide to make this quest, find the sunken island of woe, traverse its terrible perils, and now you see the Codex, which again is what, a series of books or something like that? Is that Codex, right? It's a book, or and
yeah, well, I know there's the character Codex, which was a list of character sheets in the Judges Guild.
So then you'd be, we have found the Codex of Infinite Planes. Here, underling, you look at it now.
You pick it up.
You pick it up.
You, hireling. Get that.
And then the second
what's
one.
the hireling? Yeah, what's the hireling? I mean, at this point in time, I mean, unless I've been hired, I'd want to see the contract at that point, right? Bring the contract forth.
Right.
Because unless I've been, because usually there's going to be a phrase in there, right? And I agree to follow all reasonable directions, right? Don't you think?
No, that would not be in there. It would be an employment contract, and it says other duties as assigned.
From time to time.
Right. They would specifically
reasonable.
Well, there'd be other duties as assigned.
So it's vague. So what's going to happen?
Have you read a job description before? It doesn't say other reasonable duties as assigned.
I don't read contracts. It's a waste of time.
No, I said
they're all adhesion. You just have to sign them. You can't negotiate.
Right. Well, job descriptions says it lists 4 pages of things you'll never do, which is supposed to be your job, and then it has at the end other duties as assigned, which is always the job that you have.
So he says it's I'm assigning this now. So
right.
Do it.
Right.
You know, who's going to do it? That's crazy. I mean, how much money do you got to pay me a lot of money to touch the artifact or relic? That's what you got. But right. you have to have henchmen or hire.
But this is what it says: if the player refuses to risk his or her character when an item is discovered, I don't have that problem. And the other thing is, I have. When it comes to magic items, I have not seen players say. Again, this is one of the reasons why we don't give out henchmen, because if henchmen are not being used properly, they become an extension of the character. They're like these satellite probes that get launched.
Oh, no, right.
But hirelings, I've never seen them do that, because the only time they do things is, there's a door, they have a prisoner, and they'll send them through the door, kind of a la Raiders of the Lost Ark. Ooh, there's a trap, send the bearer in there and watch his head get lopped off. But they if it's a magic item, they would never give a prisoner, here's a magic sword, figure out what it is. They would always do it, which is why Doug or anyone else would never. I don't think conceptually that's a style of play I've seen, but apparently that was a style of play. Have your hirelings and henchmen, you walk them around and have them test things.
Well, when I like to play,
I'm sure they're good parties too.
Well, I like to play all of these NPCs as they really would act. Mm-hmm. So I always find it interesting, players always want to send somebody else through. So they meet up with 2 guys who are in the dungeon too, and then every time they come to a door, you go first. Right. And then they seem a little put off when those 2 guys are like, No, I don't think so. Why are we going first?
We're joining your party.
Right, you go first. You know what I'm doing with my artifact? I'm bringing it to Saul at the Pass the Pearl. Right. So what happens there? So I bring in this artifact, and I'd like you to identify this.
Well, it's interesting. They use the word character. I think they meant the character given the item. So this is in context of the NPC.
So the player refuses. So this is the PC, right? The player refuses to risk his or her character. Right. So I'm playing the halfling thief, and I don't want to touch this thing.
Right. So some hireling or henchman to hazard the trial and error process necessary. The character given the item, which again that's the hireling or henchman.
I agree with that.
Determine its powers and effects will certainly do one of the following. So the first question I would have for you, or what you'd have to determine, is what's the alignment of Saul? Right. If he's evil, he will immediately, after collecting it, will destroy the player character.
I like that you sort of destroy, like I'm an object. I mean, why wouldn't it be kill?
Right. He will destroy or at least escape from. That's right. Not murder, destroy.
Well, maybe that's the word you use when somebody has an artifact or relic. Right. I don't kill people.
You're dead.
I destroy. There's no evidence left. That's right. Just give me your character sheet.
That's right, gone.
You just burn it in front of it. That's right. You just throw the character sheet in the fire.
That's right. Why do you have this open flame here? I'm sure I have an artifact I'll be presenting to the game. And thank you.
That's all right. That's right. That's why that fire was there. You don't tell them in advance.
That's right. Oh, it's pretty hot today.
Find out later. Oh, I like the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's good. Here's some ambience, like it's very medieval.
Okay, so this is a good lesson. You shouldn't, for multiple reasons, you shouldn't have an evil.
That's right.
hireling.
No evil hirelings. Definitely do. And if the dungeon master all of a sudden decides, this session I'm going to provide some aesthetic, if they have soothing music and they have, dim the lights and they have this open fire to kind of simulate torches, that's a bad sign.
You're going to be dead. You're going to be destroyed.
Someone's going to be destroyed. Not dead.
This is useful information, is that even
This is a pro tip.
Even if you are evil,
right,
and you're going to have some artifact, I don't think we got to keep going through the list. I don't think you want evil NPCs, because the evil hireling is going to destroy you.
Right.
Don't be like, yeah, I love evil. I want my kind. No. They're bad news, right?
As soon as you find, as soon as evil finds evil finds its level, like water. It's going to find it and avoid. It's going to destroy all their other evil.
Okay. So that's that's another pro tip.
Right.
If you are you should not bring along, and so you should do. Oh, this is interesting.
Okay.
How many of us do no alignment? What is that, a cleric spell?
It is. It's second level.
Well, it's not that bad.
No.
You should do a no alignment. Do people do they cast no alignment on their hirelings and henchmen? Because you don't know who's showing up.
Well, you can, but it's considered very rude. And in fact,
well, I mean, come on.
Well, and I'm almost sure it's talked about here when you hire people for loyalty. It's even brought up or something to that effect that if you do that, it's considered very rude and blah blah blah.
Can't I stand behind them? How do they know? How do they have to know?
Well, this brings up the whole. Well, we're gonna have to detect evil. Because I have, one of our characters, one of our players is a paladin, and he's not the only one to do it. Every paladin wants to do this. They want to do like the quick glance and detect evil. Like I can just blink at you real quick and you radiate.
And that designer, we talked about that before.
It's one round of concentration.
Well, and that's not going to do alignment usually, unless you're like really innately evil, right?
Well, apparently if you're going to destroy people, isn't that pretty evil? Is the first level henchman going to just destroy people? Destroy has evil to it.
Yeah, but he says because it says if the character is evil. It doesn't say, it doesn't qualify. Right. It just says any evil. Okay. Right, but detect evil.
I'll cede that point to you. But
it's kind of like, the way I would view it is you've got the ring now.
Yes,
you know what I mean? You're overcome with.
And that's what exactly we're talking about, because and later it says many of these items tend to make the possessor reclusive, secretive, arrogant, or greedy. These effects are best to handle through manipulation of the player by means of power, non-player characters, etc. So I love that you as the DM have to manipulate the player.
Yes, and that always gets hard.
Yeah, so that's another reason why we don't like doing this, because some of these side effects are painful. Yes, but no alignments.
Okay, so this is all right. So it's not that. So it is one round casting time. It does have verbal and somatic. So what you'd have to do is while they're being this is easy to do. While they're being interviewed, make sure it lasts should last at least a minute, at least.
Right.
What job interview? You've got the cleric behind, casting.
Oh, I see.
No alignment.
So you have someone with you behind.
Yes, okay. Absolutely. It's during the job interview as they come in.
Right.
You have the cleric will sit behind.
And this is all described in the Dungeon Master's Guide. There is hiring retainers. There is a whole process of that, and I do recall where there's a panel interview. Apparently, now you have a panel interview as opposed to one-on-one.
You should have a panel. Should have a panel.
And there should be someone droning behind them. Because that's a good example of real trust when you have this group of people talking to them and the poor hireling.
Well, and you want to have the HR person in there to make sure you don't ask the age or the religion.
None of this is in the
who's your deity?
Guide. Exactly.
Because they could get in trouble with that if you ask who their deity is.
Right. Exactly. No, it doesn't say any of that. But yes, sure.
Do you realize that in Dungeons & Dragons, probably all the questions you shouldn't ask now would be asked? Right. They'd say something like, "You're seeming a little old to be adventuring. Right. How old are you?"
Right.
And who's your... You have like a skull on there. Who's your deity? This all seems relevant information,
You can ask that totally. And in fact, what is interesting, if you're evil, they give those psychological tests, where you have to answer yes or no to things like, I'm fascinated by fire, yes, or, I've thought about hurting people.
Right.
Is that a good answer or bad? Typically, the answer would be, don't you want people who want to hurt people?
You might want somebody with some sort of mental illness,
right? Something off of
that, but actually, right.
So I think we have to do retainers again. I thought we did retainers.
And when you say something like, "Oh, I see you're a female dwarf," so that means you couldn't have an 18 strength. Is that right?
In this sexist, misogynist edition, you're right.
That's right. They say, "Oh,
you're awful kind of. You should be." Well, I think that even at that time they'd be more sophisticated. It would be something like, "Are you sure you could meet the requirements of the job? This is a very strenuous job."
Do you think so?
I think they would.
Okay.
Because, particularly if you insult them, and even if they're neutral, they will use the powers of the artifact to dominate and control his or her former employer, master or mistress, destroying him or her if threatened. Again, destroy, 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 destroy.
It's going to sound like at the end of the day, you just shouldn't. Gygax does not want you to hand off your artifact. To have the hireling or the henchman try.
Right.
Is that
Don't
right?
do that.
Artifact of the relic. It's
yes.
to discourage. We've seen this before. It seems to be a theme that there's certain rules which Gygax seems to be trying to dissuade people from doing things. Right.
That's
right. Because if it's neutral, as you said, they're going to try to dominate, control the former employer / master or mistress, destroying him or her, threatened. Again, I love the word destroying. So let's say if the character is good, so you think like, okay, this shouldn't be bad. He or she will realize that his or her employer / master or mistress acted in a most evil fashion okay, so this is interesting. This is not just an evil act. This is a most evil act.
Most evil act.
So you've got bigger problems.
Right.
You've also now, you have an alignment transgression.
Potentially, yes. If you're, if you're
not evil. Oh, that's true. It depends what your alignment is.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's most evil. So, if you're neutral, should you engage in most evil acts?
No, I think it would definitely move the needle. We'd have to pull the chart out in the back of the player's handbook and graph that, which you've been doing. So I definitely would see a shift.
Right.
So if you were chaotic neutral, which is basically every character, you'd go straight down.
Yeah.
Because most evil.
It's most evil. Yeah. If you'd say you were lawful good.
Yeah,
so you're a paladin.
If you're lawful good, which is up here, if I remember correctly, you'd go most evil, which is basically diametric, straight down to evil.
Yeah. So so there's multiple reasons why you shouldn't do that.
If you did that as a paladin, I would say have a nice time. You're now a fighter.
You're a fighter.
Right.
And when do you change alignment?
It's instantaneously.
It's instantaneously.
Yes. We talked about that.
Is that because it's a paladin?
The paladin would be instantaneous.
Right. Other characters, though, it's the DM's discretion as to when you've changed, right?
Yeah, and you have to do some kind of transgression, but there is no, at least for Paladin, it's pretty clear that there is no redemption.
What do you think Boromir's alignment was?
Lawful neutral.
Oh, really? You don't think he was good?
No, I think he was. I think he was focused on saving Gondor.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Anything else about the hiring of the henchman?
Tell us on the grog line what Boromir was. Well, of course, if you know Boromir, then you weren't worried about the spoilers I gave because you would not know who Boromir is.
He could have been. He could have look. So different people have different strategies.
Right.
So why can't he be lawful good? The ring. He became. So he was weak. He may not have been very strong.
Right.
That's not necessarily. You could be lawful good. Can you be lawful good but be weak?
I'll say it this way. I'll after reflection. Yes, I think you can. That's a personality trait, which is covetousness. You can still have an alignment, but you still could be covet. I think he was lawful good originally, but then as the power for the ring, whether it corrupted him directly or his thought of it, it moved him to lawful neutral, which basically says, the ends justify the means, which is we'll use the ring to defeat evil, even though the ring is evil.
Oh, okay.
So I think he shifted to a lot, which is probably why he got killed. Oh, sorry. He lost a level in that discussion with Frodo, and he didn't have as many hit points.
Oh, right. And
he probably would have survived.
So that's why he can only take 174 arrows.
Right. That 174th, he would have survived. He was probably a 9th level fighter, and he went down to 8th level.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
That's my take on it. So, giving it to henchmen is very bad. Here's the other thing that's different between them. If one of the most fun things a dungeon master can do is, and a lot of them don't do this, and you really want to see characters get the first edition feel, because I don't know if any other edition does it. I'm sure they should. If your player character fails a save that is destructive in nature, like a fireball or a lightning bolt, you are then supposed to have the character roll for their items. In other words, if the player fails, then they've been exposed to the same thing. And nothing says player satisfaction with the game when their +2 plate mail is destroyed because of magical fire.
Right.
That, you want to talk about a happy. I left work early to get my seat, so that all my stuff.
Yeah. Poor John lost I think a rogue displacement.
It was
the fire, was it?
Well, that was Jason, if I remember correctly.
Oh, maybe.
And that was a drop of oil touched it, and you guys burned it up, which I thought was pretty. That was pretty hardcore. That was good. I wouldn't have done that.
That was Edward, I think.
I thought he was being hardcore.
Yeah.
He didn't like that thing. He was getting rid of it. So we had a situation. One of our characters. Anyway, there's plenty of ways. Artifacts are like Lord of the Rings, like the ring. You can't just get hit by fireball and the one ring of destruction, one ring through them all goes away. There has to be. You as the DM have to come up with the way it's to be destroyed.
Well, and what's interesting, if you try to destroy it in a way that you're not supposed to, right? Yeah. Disassembling its parts, removing a portion, or similarly defacing it, must usually save versus magic at -5. Right?
But there's good news.
Yes.
Failure equals
death,
but not destruction.
Excellent. So you've got a body.
Right.
But does that? Oh, so wait a second. If you're destroyed, does that mean you can't be resurrected because you're like? What happens if you're just completely... So if you're killed by a fireball, don't you need a body to have resurrection?
You have to have, raised dead, you need to have a body.
Yeah, what's the difference between raised dead and
resurrection? You can just bring people back from a long time, hundreds of years, depending on the power of the cleric.
Oh, I got it. So raised dead is more like, it just happened recently.
Yeah, raised dead is a day for each level.
In either one, do you need basically... Is the body coming back as the body? So if you've been dismembered...
If it's been dismembered...
Or it's a fireball.
The body has to be whole in order to come back.
Oh, well, I can assume I can be missing an arm.
You would come back without an arm.
Right, okay.
Whatever you don't have, you don't bring forth.
So you need like your vital organs. You can't just bring back a head.
Yeah, the idea
like
if you
Ted
were cut,
Williams.
well, like for instance, the carrion crawler, whatever, dissolved one of our player characters, and in Dan and Ed's friendly game of character growth and plot development.
Well, carrion crawlers are pretty
right. Half eviscerate, half digestion.
You didn't have to stop and fight the.
You're right.
Oh yeah, I love when they went back. I think I just had the Rangers boots sitting there.
Right. So in that case, not eligible for raised dead.
That's right. It was just the boots. It was like was there a SpongeBob episode where the super acquaintances where it's just the boots are remaining
at the land. It was the circle of super friends. Yes.
Yeah.
So resurrection.
A division of Icon.
It is. I don't think in resurrection you need anything, but you may need a piece of the bone or something like that. I forget exactly what it is.
Okay, so the good news is...
Let's see.
Oh,
that's right. You don't need anything.
What do you come back as? You get your whole body back?
Is able to destroy life into the person he or she bestowed the resurrection on. The person can be dead up to 10 years. See raised at a limit. What person can be raised or reversed? Destruction requires a touch. The material components are the religious symbol and holy and unholy water. Employment of the spell makes it impossible for the cleric to cast further spells or engage in combat until she has 1 day of red rest for each level experience person brought back. It doesn't say... Well, it says person touched, so perhaps you need something, which is a good thing. You need to have some part of the body to be restored back.
But it doesn't say, so it really doesn't... What level is that?
7th level. To me, it's 5th element. Everyone saw the 5th element where, Bruce Willis movie where they have the bone and they reconstruct her based on the one fragment that she has. Oh. Here, it just says area of effect person touch. So you need to have something to touch, but it doesn't say... It says the material components are the only other two things. So it's a little vague. I'm sure on Dragon's Foot. Anyway, the point of this is these items are very hard to destroy. The one ring could only be destroyed at Mount Doom. You couldn't just cast Disintegrate on it. You couldn't cast Wish to make it not be anymore. You could probably wish it to go someplace else, but you could not destroy it with that. Now, here's the interesting part, because I've read that before, but then if you go to page 81 in the DMG, because I've read this too, and you go to page...
Oh, there's Artifacts and Relics. Look at that on saving throws.
There you go.
The top right. How'd you find that?
I read it a long time ago.
That's great.
We have fans out there who demand high-quality shenanigans and tomfoolery. So...
And we'll get there at some point.
Right, one day. This is still a trial. This is under the DMG saving throw matrix for magical and non-magical items. Artifacts and relics. Because of the very nature of these items, you may desire to disallow any destruction or harm, which is consistent in the back. This rule will apply to some or all or none as you deem best in the circumstance. You might, for example, decide that all such items have additional +3 in their saving throw, and that certain obviously potent items are subject to harm only from other artifacts or relics. Or attacks by gods or similarly to powerful beings. So you're going to have to adjudicate in your world, do you go with the first example, must be destroyed in Mount Doom, or the idea is, what happens if Thor's hammer strikes your Eye of Vecna? Well, you're dead. You're destroyed. Your guy is getting thrown into the fire. But does the Eye of Vecna is the Eye of Vecna destroyed in that way? Or is it only destroyed by the way that you have said it's destroyed?
Yeah, because obviously the DM can choose. I'm sure that's obviously Gygax's intent. But 156 really sounds like you need to have a special way. He doesn't seem to give much wiggle room, right? He says, all artifacts and relics, all, are such a power that they are virtually, now it's interesting, he says, virtually impervious to harm, magical or physical. So he's really, sounds like he's saying pretty much it's almost never going to be that you could just destroy it by normal means.
But then there's the opening here.
Exactly, because of the very nature, you may desire to disallow any destruction or harm to these items. So it's obviously, it's up to you. But it sounds to me like the default rule should be you can't destroy it by normal means.
But this is the difference between a movie and your game. You're going to have players who are going to come up with things. You're going to have to decide, better think about this beforehand. The idea of, especially if you're going to have multiple artifacts in your campaign, where if I have the Axe of the Dwarves Lords, and if I strike the Mad Machine with it, will it destroy it? Or no, you must take the Machine of Mad the Lum, whatever it's called, to the place that it was created and cast, shed the blood of 3 saints on it and 2 demon lords and whatever you're going to do there.
Well, and I guess the nice is on page 81 is sort of the tenor of that discussion about if you've got the item. Now I know it's not so limited, but you've got the item. What's to say? So I'm walking around with this artifact.
Right.
I fall off a cliff. Now if I'm falling off a cliff, but I've got an artifact, I'm obviously like level 12, so I'm probably going to survive this fall.
Right. But your artifact may not if you read it as, if you allow for it to have a saving throw.
So so it seems to be talking about I've got the artifact. What happens when certain stuff happens to me and my body and it's on me? Versus down the line, it's like, I want to destroy this eye. So I wonder if that's some of the difference in tenor. I mean, obviously, it should be consistent. There really shouldn't be a difference.
Well, to me, by opening this up, you've changed the tenor. If the Lord of the... for instance, if Frodo, by being attacked by the Nazgul, had the opportunity for the ring to be destroyed, well then, why are they wasting time taking to Mount Doom? Just start blasting Frodo with all kinds of magic and things. And if he fails, then... Because... even if it's a 1, the item fails on, which is always, 1 is always a failure, by giving a saving throw, the rule is 1 is a failure. There is no automatic save. If you have to make a save, 1 will always fail.
That's right. It's in the DMG somewhere, right? It says 1 is always a failure, right?
1 is always a failure. So if you've done that, now you've given a 5% chance to destroy something, right? So what is easier, taking this to Mount Doom where all the forces of evil are there, or casting 20 fireballs against you and you failing, you'll be destroyed.
You just keep going eventually.
Keep blasting you until you get destroyed.
Oh yeah, you're going to go till it...
Because it's a 1 in 5 chance. So that's why this is very interesting. So I think, I agree with you, but I think the circumstances, it can't just be a normal fireball. It would have to be, again, Odin's hammer hits you, and it makes, a clap of lightning from it comes, and because it's a divine weapon that hits you, that there may be a chance to do it. That would be the only example I would give. I wouldn't give the normal, even a disintegrate. Because one of the other things I didn't realize until I was doing some research on this was that the effects, now we haven't really talked about the effects, and we're going to need to do that. We're going to talk about the, when you create your specific artifact, there's six things you can give it. Minor and major powers, benign powers, minor and major effects, bad effects, malevolent effects, beautiful word. There's benign powers, malevolent effects, prime powers, and side effects, which can be plus or minus. So what's interesting about that, if you go, before you read all this, it says, which I've never read before, but I read it this time, I was like, finally, whatever befalls the possessor of an artifact or relic, or the effects he or she caused by the use of the prime powers, or even major powers. So again, prime power is the most powerful thing it can do. So here's some examples of prime powers. Plane shift, restoration, resurrection. Resurrection 7 times a week. You can cast resurrection 7 times a week. Bones, exoskeleton, cartilage of opponent turned to jelly 1 time a day. Anyway, you get the idea. Super powerful stuff. So at the top of 156, second column, or even major powers in some cases, is permanent and usually irreversible by the most powerful of spells, including wishes, for example, or even the deities. Exception, a deity who created the item or the one that can fully control it may, at your option, be able to reverse the effect. So this was what's really super powerful. So if I disintegrated Dan's character, I would always adjudicate that wish. You could wish to come back to a time just before that. What this is saying, the effects of this, they're not fixable by other magic. That's crazy.
You're right. You'd have to go to someone would have to go to the deity, if assuming a deity created the item.
Right.
You have to go to the deity. So now usually we'd be talking about an artifact, probably not a relic, right? And you would beg this deity to reverse the effects. So that just says may, right?
Right, may, at your discretion.
May, at your option, be able to reverse. And then they may not even do it. So it's kind of like going to Heat Miser and Cold Miser and asking, right, for this favor.
Exactly.
Who are you?
Right. So these things, not only are the effects super powerful, but they are irreversible, unless there's another thing that reverses on here. So you have a major malevolent effect. So some of these are, player goes insane for 1 to 4 days. Oh, the only good news is that if one of the major malevolent effects, user instantly killed, but maybe raised or resurrection. So that's good. That's nice.
Can we roll one up?
Sure. Well, we're going to roll it? We're going to do random?
Yeah,
right,
cool.
cool.
That's more fun, right?
Yeah, I love
Can we do that?
Yeah, and we're going to use a dice that my dear friend Dan bought me, because why are we using other dice when we can use the Gary Con dice, which I like?
Great convention.
It is.
Shout out to Gary Con.
Gary Con. I guess I can use this dice? Yeah, right? I can use, that's our percentages, basically?
Yeah.
So
that's right. See, we're going old school here.
Yeah.
Got to remember how you did that.
Exactly.
It's not exactly old. So is it? Oh yeah, no, it sure is.
That's
because it just has a single digit, right? It doesn't have the.
Exactly.
So we'd have to. What we oftentimes, I think, roll a
right,
six-sider with it, right?
Yep, to figure it out, or if anything to split it up. Exactly. So we're gonna pick one. So I think let me make sure I talked about it. We talked about discovery, which would be again a legendary. Its use, very powerful. Destroying, we talked a little bit about, and that it changes the player. Again, these are kind of based on Greyhawk, not kind of. They are based on Greyhawk. And then once we'll roll one up, and then we'll talk about how to use one in your campaign.
Oh, and there's and we want to point out on page 164, it talks about the destruction of artifacts and relics. Right, there's a little discussion of different ways you can go about destroying it. Right, I don't know if you want to talk about that now.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay.
So what does it say?
So it reiterates that artifacts and relics are virtually impervious to magical.
Okay, I see it.
Bottom 164. Magical and physical harm, and each may only be, quote, destroyed by a single legendary means. So there's just one way, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Not multiple. And frequently the supposed destruction is actually a form of nullification or containment of the artifact or relic, but results in the neutralization of its powers for vast periods of time. So that's true too. So it may be that it's not actually destroyed. It's just sort of,
Right. So it's not the Lord of the Rings where the fire gets reclaimed back. It actually, and I don't know, maybe in future Tolkien works, maybe but the world allowed for the ring to reform.
Well, nowadays, so if this was happening now, of course.
Yeah.
because it would be, a whole new set of movies,
Right,
a new set of books, the ring is back, right?
Yeah, or someone tries to bring the ring back because the ring is never actually destroyed. It was just suspended when the Fourth Age came or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it.
Right. Okay, so this.
So here's some examples.
Yes. And I love this too, that they have nemesis. Nemesises? Nemesi, right? So artifacts and relics can have a nemesis, right? So it's supposed to be a whole new adventure, right? Trying to destroy this thing. It could be a whole campaign.
Right. So there could be basically two artifacts should be able to are opposing each other.
And you need the grace of the gods.
Yes.
You need your chances of destroying this without the grace. Once again, we've talked about this before. I think that deities should be used much more than they often are in these campaigns. So, but so the ways to destroy it: melt it down in a fiery furnace pit, Mountain Forge,
Mount Doom, aka Mount Doom.
Exactly right. Drop it and bury it somewhere. Obviously, something.
The Well of Time.
I don't know what these things are. What is the what is the Well of Time?
I think they're legendary things from various things.
Okay.
Under 100 adult red dragon skulls.
Yeah.
That seems odd.
Bury it beneath 100 adult red. Yeah, that would be, unless you could find like a graveyard. I would want to find, rather than killing the red dragon, I think I would want to look for the fossils.
Right.
I would think. Cause it to be devoured.
It's just some of these are so easier
ancient
compared
dragon
to.
turtle.
Right. So here are your choices. If you have two choices to destroy this artifact. One is cause it to be broken against or crushed by the foot of a humble ant.
That was my favorite. Can we talk about that?
No.
I loved it when I saw that. That's hilarious.
It is.
Okay, so meaning an ant.
Right.
So do you have to figure out, am I missing something here? Or do you have to figure out a way to get this little ant to
crush this thing?
Right? So I have to like do a large spell or make it a super ant? What
Not just any ant.
I know a humble.
Does the ant have to be humble, or is the ant itself humble?
Wait, what's the difference? Say that again?
Well, I could be a humble human, meaning I'm not a great representation of humanity.
Right.
Or I could be a humble human, or I'm not prideful. So is the ant prideful, or is the ant not prideful, or because it's an ant, it's a very lowly creature?
Yeah, I would have to think he meant the latter. It's just a humble. So it can't be a special ant. I don't think
that would make it more challenging, wouldn't it? To find the ant that's humble. That's right.
No, that is not. Just meaning it's your everyday ant. But so what do you have to do? Do you have to make the ant?
Well,
how do you do that?
It doesn't say.
That's great.
But that seems easier to have it cause it to be broken against or crushed by the foot of a humble ant. That seems a lot easier than one of these. Cause it to be steeped in the ecliphatic fluids of the brain of Bahamut, or the black and foul blood from the heart of Tiamat.
I'm looking at supposedly the penetrating light and flame of the sun. So are we like
It's space travelers.
Icarus here?
Yeah, that's right.
How'd that go?
Didn't go well.
I don't think so.
I'm just saying some of these are not exactly in the same level of complexity.
You know the only reason I know about the flight of Icarus.
Well, of course I know.
Right, the only reason. I haven't actually read it, of course.
Well, no one's read it. That's why we have Iron Maiden. They're the crib notes of mythology.
Exactly.
We know Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
It's so long.
Right. Well, I had to read it.
No, not this. Oh. No, the song. It goes on forever. I mean, it really did capture the. Did it capture the?
Well, it's
back.
Story? You want to talk about how much of a nerd I am? So, real quick segue. We had to read Rime of the Ancient Mariner in our English class, and I convinced my teacher to play Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
In the the little crappy phonographs they had at high school, you know. So I'm sure it destroyed
your vinyl.
Brought my vinyl in. I don't think she realized it was going to be a 13-minute song.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and they're waiting and waiting.
I'm like, yes. And everyone else, no one cares.
It's just you. That's good. That's good. That's great, though.
It was awesome.
That's a good story.
I said, because of course I was Riggs. This is the same thing that the group I really like. Oh, she's like, and she was trying to be encouraging. I think after that she probably probably went home and drank and never said, I'll never do that again.
Yeah, when they played that in Com, like it's time for a bathroom break. I'll be back. I get some popcorn. That's when you get your T-shirt.
Right.
You do all those things.
However,
you get a hot
that was
dog.
well, and our group played Rhyme of the Ancient Manager, so I have a special place for it because nowadays that's not even a long song for Iron Maiden. 13 minutes is that's a warm up. They have songs that are 20 minutes now, so
terrible.
Because they're old. Anyway,
Okay.
the point of this is, all these are very complicated, and it should be extremely complicated to either destroy or nullify.
Yeah.
And the point of all this is you need to tailor them to your campaign. You should not just drop the Eye of Vecna in your campaign if Vecna didn't exist. How did Vecna get there? Is Vecna this demi-lich, arch-demi-lich, patrolling all the multiverses, or just Greyhawk, or whatever? You're going to have to decide how that plays into it. Which, again, I think part of it is to leverage, use these as a template, come up with some legendary things, and create your own. So we were going to roll for one.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Can we just start with the first one? This axe looked...
Yeah, the Axe of the Dwarves and
I really don't know these
Lords.
very well. I don't even want to know them, because if they're ever in a campaign...
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't really matter, because most of their powers are
random anyway. But it's kind of fun not to know, don't you think?
Okay, we'll start with the Axe of the Dwarves.
Back in the old days when you didn't know about
and
everything.
I still really don't know. I've kind of read them once, but I couldn't tell you. I know the Eye and Hand of Vecna because the legend about them is, in order to use them, you have to pluck your eye out and stick the eye in, or you have to cut your hand off and put the hand on.
Do you know that orc shaman, right? I believe
they pluck their eyes out.
Yeah,
one of them.
Because a Grumsh.
Grumsh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's loyalty.
That is, yeah.
That's why when I'm a half orc cleric, I never take Grumsh as my deity. Take the mother god.
Yeah, I like her with the long nails. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
The wife of Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
All right, Axe of Dwarven Lords.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this item real quickly. Legend relates that the greatest dwarf who ever lived, the first dwarven king, forged this weapon in volcanic fires with the aid of a patron god. It passed from dwarven monarch to dwarven monarch until it was lost in the invoked devastation centuries gone. Rumors persist of the appearance of the axe from time to time in various places. You mean like a pawn shop or something?
Right. Well, back to Magic Bay, like we were talking about M Bay.
Yeah.
There would be posting would be taken down before you get to it.
Yeah, right.
This posting was deleted by the author.
I think that's right. But it supposedly bears a curse. The blade of the axe is equal to a sword of sharpness. What is swords of sharpness?
We talked about that 2 weeks ago. Sword of sharpness. It's the thing. If you roll a certain roll, if you roll high enough, let's say I think it's like 18 or above, you may cut off a certain part of your opponent's body.
That's what I thought, but that's what the Vorpal Weapon does, the head, right?
Vorpal, as far as I know, just does the head, but it may do other things.
All right. And it's backed by a head equal to a +3 hammer. All right. And it looks, it returns to you. Extends or contracts upon command to equal a battle or hand axe. It will turn 30 feet to its thrower. That's very nice. Has a dwarven abilities of the user of infravision, trap detection, etc. Double abilities if a dwarf possessor's lifespan is 50% longer than normal. He or she becomes more and more dwarf-like with time until eventually he or she actually resembles one. That's great. Do you shrink? It depends if you started as.
Well, for me, I wouldn't have to shrink much.
Right. So you're right. You could be. That's okay. That's great.
That would not be a big thing. So basically on its own. If someone found the Axe of Dwarven Lords, they'd be like, oh, great, it's a +3 hammer I can throw and this and that. Yeah, I get some dwarf powers. That's great. Now the fun stuff happens.
But can I ask you, so let's say that you did take it to Saul, pass the parole.
Right.
And you know, because you've done a detect magic on it and you know it's magic.
Correct.
And you hand it to Saul. Does his brain melt?
His brain doesn't melt, but he may, if he's evil, he may use it to kill you.
Oh, wait a second. You're right. I hadn't thought about this. So Saul does. So he goes through this and he discovers what it is. He's gonna. You have to follow. So you would follow the hireling henchman rules.
That's right. Is he evil? Then he's going to destroy you.
He's basically right.
You should. This is the point. It's like the ring. Some of the story is interesting that Bilbo freely gives the ring to Frodo, but after that, Frodo doesn't give it to anyone else. He's like, I'm the bearer. No one else can look at it. No one can see it. I think only one time, right? He gives it to, before Frodo knows what the ring is, right? He gives it to Gandalf to confirm.
You're missing a ring bearer.
Besides Bilbo?
Yeah, well,
besides Smeagol?
And besides Sam.
Oh, he was the ring bearer for a
Sam
bit.
was a ring bearer, right?
That's
For a
right.
portion.
And Sauron, he was a ring bearer.
That's true. That's true.
He bore the ring.
That's true. Is there any? Yeah, no, there is one more. At least one more. If anyone knows of any others, they can.
I don't know.
Because you hate him.
I hate him. He's a gnome? He's a gnome illusionist?
No, he's no mask.
He's no mask. Oh, Tom, whatever is it?
Oh my gosh, yes, Tom Bombadil.
He had the ring?
He tosses it in the air and he puts it on. It has no effect. He doesn't go invisible. The ring has no control of power over him.
See, I Fellowship, I was really young.
I loved that. Was my favorite.
I have to read that again, and just the thought of it, I may need to have some major illness.
No, it's the best. Do you have the Atlas of Middle Earth?
No, I don't.
You should get the Atlas of Middle Earth. It's the best way to follow. You can follow where they're going. You get the Atlas of Middle Earth and Fellowship, read them, and yes, and then you should respect Tom Bombadil. He has mastery. I mean, that's not the right word. I'm sure people will quibble with that. Over the ring, he has complete power. I believe in the Old Forest,
right.
That even the ring has no power over him.
Right, which makes no sense.
And honestly, how could you not like somebody who's able to land Goldberry?
Well, I agree. That's a different story.
Right?
But maybe it's a little hatred. The only thing is, I don't really remember.
It is.
him.
You're jealous. You're jealous of Bombadil.
Yeah, I could be. Except I don't remember.
Because you're
him.
in love with Goldberry.
Well, I don't remember any of that. I skipped over that from the time, if I recall, because it was just songs and blah blah blah, and till they got to Bree. Everything between that, blah blah blah, words.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm that guy. I was also 13 when I read it. So and I had to read it for school. So it was. Originally, it was.
Wow, I approve of your schooling.
I went to New York schools. Thank you very much.
So you read Lord of the Rings and you listened to Iron Maiden.
That's
school.
right. Rhyming
Awesome.
Ancient Matters. It was pretty good. That's why I graduated.
That's awesome.
It was not too bad.
That's the only reason you graduated.
So I read the first one, and then at the end it was good. And I started reading, and then Two Towers and Return of the King I read, and I read them willingly. So all right.
Let's figure out what our players aren't going to know this. But so if you didn't identify, what's going to happen is he's going to.
Well, they should know that it's the axe. They know they went to the dwarven temple of whatever, and they see it there. It shouldn't just be like.
You're right. You're not bringing it to Saul.
You're not bringing it to Saul to do that because it's a legendary item.
Yeah, but these things could happen though.
I mean, in 9 times out of 10, you could do the ring way, which you have no idea. Like I said, Bilbo.
It's lost. Someone finds it. Right.
Sure. I think you have to have that as an option, but that's not the standard way. Okay. If you've gone into the mines of Moria and you've gone to the ancient tomb of King whatever, and it's sitting there and it's untarnished over time, everything else is dusty and great, you should have a clue if this is something more than your standard X plus 2. But if you don't, yes, okay, you go with that thought. So you're thinking that there could be an opportunity that someone's going to hand this artifact over to...
I buy it. I find it at a yard sale.
Right.
So what do they call it? They have people that you go around to yard sales and you look right.
Yeah, they're yard crashers or whatever they call it.
Right, or whatever. Yeah. Or it was in someone's storage. It's like Storage Wars. I bid on it. And and there's this axe.
You got because King blah blah blah.
Yeah, he
got
didn't
to
pay
make his payment. It's been 300 years.
Right.
Ran out of money. I got you.
Okay, I like that. But all right, so we'll roll. All right, so
the way this works is under each artifact, there are a number of features that you would have to determine. We're deciding we're doing random. So this says there's 2 type 1, 1 type 2, 1 type 3, 1 type 4, 1 type 5, 1 type 6. So basically, it's slightly better than worse, meaning there are more benign and useful things than there are.
Oh, that's true, because your malevolent are what? Are
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
3, 4, and 6 are bad. 1, 2, and 5 are good.
Got it. 3 forgot it. Right.
All right, so we're doing 2 1s. So this looks like roughly from Z to XX, that's 26 and 24 is 50. So there's 50 of these items, right? 26, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. Pretty close to 50. So roll D100 and divide by 2.
Okay, so what am I rolling to get to? So I'm rolling...
So you're going to roll D100. So we're going to roll this twice, and then we'll divide it by 2.
Oh, okay.
30, 37, so that's 18. Or 19. Let's say 37.
Here, we'll round up. 1, 2, 3, rounding down. 4, 5, 6 up. Rounding down.
So 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8. Find traps 3 times a day.
Oh, very nice. That kind of makes sense. It's dwarvish. All right.
Find traps. Okay, roll again.
So
So you would write this down.
How
Find
do
traps.
you know? But so how does this work? How does it find traps? What do you do?
Well, you'd have to do legend lore to figure that out. So you do have to take it to some point, or you have to use some other means, because it says you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
At the end of the descriptions, there's 5 tables must be conferred. Players will know virtually nothing about any powers or effects of any artifact. They must be discovered through experimentation by their characters, legends, legend lore, etc.
Okay, well, I don't want to bring it to somebody. I don't want to bring it to Saul because he'll take, right?
Right, he'll kill you. He'll destroy you.
He's got to
2 out of 3 things he'll destroy you.
because he's got to touch it to do.
Yes.
Right? Legend Lord, so it's clerical spell. Sounds
No, it's magic user.
It's a magic
user. 5th
user?
or 6th level spell.
So, if you've got a magic user that has legend lore.
Right, you're probably not going after the first artifact of the dwarves when you're first level.
Yeah, what's interesting? Yeah, so all right, so you have your own magic user there who's going to have legend, hopefully, and then he'll.
And who knows if that person's going to not want to destroy you?
So does it work like a wand then? You like point the axe?
Yeah, you point it, or you decide the thing, or you hold it and you say find traps or whatever.
Right.
Like in Firefox, you must speak in Dwarvish. You have to, and maybe ancient Dwarvish. Maybe there's a dead Dwarvish language they have to learn.
Maybe there's a command word.
In dead Dwarvish language that they don't know. They try to use the Dwarvish and it doesn't work. They have to find the ancient Dwarvish language.
What if you?
Which is a prototype language.
And if let's say it had a command word, we talked about this last time.
Right.
If it's lost, you're in real trouble.
You have to do speak with dead.
Right, and then you got to find the dead person.
Well, you'd have to find the first dwarven king.
Or if he passed it up, yes, that would be the best case scenario. He may have forgotten. It's been so long.
And you can go 1,000 years. Maximum time. So has he been dead more than 1,000 years? If not, then you may have to do something else. You may have to go to the plane and visit the soul of the dwarf or whoever it is. You may have to go there and talk to them. These are the ideas.
Okay, got it.
And which is why when you start doing this, players hate this. I just want to do detect traps 3 times a day.
No, you need to do a campaign to figure out.
Just to figure out detect. I'll just memorize detect traps. I'll just do find traps as a 2nd level spell.
Exactly, I'm good.
I'm good. Okay, keep going. Next one.
I'm just going to sell it.
Roll percentages.
All right.
So 7 and then roll the other one again.
Sorry, I don't want that thing.
78. Okay, that's 30, 39, right? 39. 39 times 2, 78. So 26, 30, 33, 36, 39. Speak with plants 7 times a week.
Okay.
That's what you could. Those are your minor benign powers. Now major benign powers.
This is an artifact? So those are minor.
These are minor.
That's a good point. So the best is yet to come.
Right. So this is very close to 52. So let's do that again. Same thing. Roll.
What am I doing? Which ones?
Roll percentages again. Yeah.
Oh, what are we? 83.
83, and then use the D6.
40, right.
Yeah.
High. 42.
Rounding up. Yeah. 42. So 26, 30, 35, 40, 42. True seeing 1 time a day.
Oh, okay.
So that's your major benign power. That's number 2.
Oh, that's right, because I had 2 minor. All right.
Yeah.
What did I get?
True seeing 1 time a day.
What's true seeing?
True seeing is you can true see. You can, if there was false walls, you'd see secret doors. You'd see if things were trapped. You see if people's alignment. You see if there's invisible creatures, ethereal creatures, astral creatures.
That's great. That is a major power. All right.
It is. It's also 5th level magic cleric spell. Okay. Minor malevolent effects. So this goes up to X, Y, Z. So there's 24 of these. So roll a D12 and a D6.
Got it. So on the high end?
Yep. So 22.
22.
22, which is the last. 22 is weight loss of 5 to 30 pounds.
Oh my gosh! What if I was a halfling?
That'd be painful, and it's not reverse. It's not. It doesn't. It's, remember, you could argue that this is permanent.
That's what it says. It doesn't say they're permanent.
Yes. So these are permanent things.
So hang on, I want to see now. Where's the weight? 101, 102?
Yeah, something like that.
What's the tiniest I can get? So was like a female halfling probably on weight in pounds?
Yeah, 50 pounds.
50 pounds. And then
that's average. If she could be less, she could be 42 pounds.
I'm 42 pounds, and then I lose. How much am I losing?
5 to 30.
And then I lose 30.
Right. You're 12. You're screwed. Yeah. Oh.
That's skinnier than me.
A little skinny.
That's what I did. I grabbed that axe.
Yeah, you ground the axe, and that's why you're. Yeah, that's right.
Is what happened to you.
Is that really a malevolent effect? For me, that would be a positive effect.
I look fantastic.
You'd have to pork up to keep your weight going. Exactly.
Wait, but you'd have to, but can you? So in other words, you lose it. Should you be able to pork up if it's irreversible? I'd be like, you can't gain weight.
ever.
Well, it's irreversible. That doesn't seem right.
So if you knew that it lost weight, you'd have to figure that and then just eat a lot before you did it. Just be 300 pounds. You'd be the fattest halfling you ever could be.
So if you're 12, wouldn't you have to roll? You die.
Eventually, yeah.
If you're 12 pounds.
Yeah, you'd be dead. Well, I don't know. Anorexia. We'd have to look that up.
Really?
It's horrible.
Pounds?
12 pounds is rough.
That's my cat.
Premature babies are 8
Yeah,
ounces.
but you're this high. Yes, but you're not this.
You'd be skin and bones.
Taller.
It's true. I agree with you.
You'd be undead.
Back to the undead. The undead halfling. Which is carrying this giant axe.
You can't carry it.
It's just
That's one of those. That's one of those things.
well, it'd be very Gollum-like because Smeagol became Gollum. He kind of transitioned.
You have a little wagon. You have the radio flyer.
That's right.
Someone give me my axe. No, don't touch it.
Not kill you.
It's
I'll
mine.
destroy you.
Someone give it to me. No, don't touch it.
That's right. That's awesome.
Okay.
All right. So good news. That's the minor one. Now you get to figure out the major malevolent power.
Okay.
So again, he's got Z and 4 and 4. So that's 34 powers. So 34 powers. What's the easiest way to do that? Let's just do 60. Can we do 60? No, that won't work. 34.
How about I roll percentile till I get it? Between 1 and 34.
Well, let's do 1 and 6. Just do D20 and then we'll split it by that. And then if it's more than 6, go ahead, roll it again. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Do 6. That's right. Then roll this.
Yeah.
See if okay. So that's 16. So 16, and now roll this again if it's in the top or the bottom. I'm making this up. Okay.
I'm fine.
So 16. Let's see. So we went 12. So basically, I'm taking this, making this equal to 40, and the top 3 are not being done.
You don't have to. It's fine.
Thank you. I appreciate it because I'm just making this up. So 10, 16.
Did you carry the 1?
I did carry the 1. 16. So yeah. Utterance of a spell causes complete loss of voice for 1 day.
Oh, so if I'm a spellcaster.
Right. So this, if you're the halfling thief, that's not a big deal.
Okay, cool. All right.
I like the one after that.
Yeah.
Or the one before it. User withers and ages 3 to 30 years each time the primary power is used, eventually turning the possessor into a deathless, withered zombie guardian of the item.
Yeah.
Which I think probably if I was going with the lost 5 to 30 pounds, I would do that one.
You know, what we haven't talked about...
Because that makes more sense. You basically just become this husk of a dwarven axe guardian. But keep going.
But that raises the issue, why? So what's the nature of artifacts and relics that they come with also necessarily, right, of these malevolent powers? I mean, or effects. Do all have? I mean, are there any that don't have malevolent effects?
I don't recall ever seeing one that doesn't have.
Yeah. So the question is, and if there are any, there's certainly not many.
There's Eye of Vecna. So for instance, Eye of Vecna does not have it doesn't have a side effect, but it has a bunch of other things. Like for instance, you become neutral evil.
So what is it about artifacts and relics that they generally come with malevolent effects? I mean, why? I mean, is it...
Well, using the model of the ring, it's a powerful item that controls things, but that comes with a price, which is you're controlled by the item, and you're bent to its will.
So whatever it takes to create this item and imbue it with positive attributes is so difficult that the door's cracked open and some malevolent ones seep in.
Or what? Well, it's if you want to go really sideways, it's when we study ants and we dissect them or rabbits, the humble ant, right? From our perspective, we're furthering science. From the ant's perspective, it's a horrible thing that we're doing to it, right? So these are powers that we cannot comprehend, and we're opening the door to cosmic forces when you use these artifacts. These are portals to the divine and to forces that mere mortals should not understand.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's the way I would look at it.
I like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Which makes more sense than the deities are just being capricious and just kind of throwing a bunch of things on there.
We view them as malevolent.
Right.
They're malevolent to us.
Right. These are forces we are not supposed to have. and we're leveraging.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're paying a price to to use
back to the Icarus thing. You're flying to something. So, but now
there's no free lunch.
There's no free lunch,
Greyhawk.
and that's why for most artifacts people don't want to use them. That's the other thing. If the players know artifacts, if they've been a DM or they've read the DMG, people don't tend to clamor for them because
I think you get them because it's a quest for somebody else wants it and wants to use it, or you want to destroy it, right? I mean,
you have to destroy it or something. Exactly.
They're not really right. It sounds like they're really not. If you're that high level anyway, it's time to shut the campaign down and
but that's it. People like
on the Borderlands start again.
Well, that's you say, but some players love that. Okay, so we still have our prime powers. So these are we got locate, we got speak with plants. Unfortunately, we lose weight, and if we utter a spell, we can't speak for the rest of the day, which could be a problem if you're a spellcaster.
Okay.
Now we have prime powers. There's LL. So let's see, 4, 8, 12. 12 and 26 is 38. Okay, let's do the D20 again. Roll a D20.
Okay.
So you have to do that twice. Roll both of them together.
I got it. Right.
So that's a 3, and then roll a D6 to figure out if it's top 3 or bottom 3. Bottom 3. So it's 29. Time stop of twice normal duration, 1 time a week.
Wow.
Is
that a spell?
Yes. It's a 9th level magic user spell.
You stop time.
Stopping time.
Wow.
But
I can do stuff.
Correct.
While time is stopped.
So you have an axe that everyone else is top time, and you have an axe. And you're thinner. You can't speak, but you can wail on people.
So everyone's like, "What happened to Gordo? Gordo just is gone because time stopped and I left."
Or you've killed everyone that you.
So all of a sudden you're doing stuff, and all of a sudden it's everyone's.
Yeah, everyone else has stopped.
Yeah.
You're just moving around. It's like one of those movies you see where everyone's like this, and the other person's kind of walking around. That's time stop.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's and the reason it's powerful is because it says double the duration. Because typically the duration is very small. It's in segments, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
Yeah, it's half a segment per level plus 1 to 8 segments. So if at cast at 18th level, you're talking about 10 to 18 segments. So if double that would be 20 to 36 segments. So you're talking 2 minutes. You can do a lot of damage in 2 minutes.
I mean, I think what I would be inclined to do is to select powers and effects that I felt were consistent with the nature of the item.
And it's fun randomly, but because you probably wouldn't pick
It's a little gonzo, though.
Right.
So this item's a little...
Well, let's do a side effects, because we still haven't done that. Because when you use the thing, you're supposed to roll this, if I remember. 4, 8, 12, 16, 18. All right, roll D20. 17. So that's pretty much close to the end. Whenever the prime power is used, or those creatures friendly to the user within 20 feet, excluding the user, will sustain 5 to 20 hit points of damage.
Wow.
There you go.
And what was the prime? The prime power was the time stop?
The time stop, yeah.
So anytime you use time stop?
They're getting 5 to 20.
Wow.
Bam.
Okay. Wow.
How's that?
Yeah, that's really nice. Prime power, friendly to the user will sustain. Yeah, that's definitely, No.
I'm doing it.
Not again, no. I only have how many hit points?
Sorry. I've lost 30 pounds. I'm a guardian crypt keeper. So you get the idea.
Yeah. I'm like, someone else is going to feel my pain.
Right.
You know?
But it's kind of like, these are superhero powers. And so players, for the most part, don't like these because they're unknown. There's downside, and players don't like downside. So with that, you have to tailor them to the campaign. So you mentioned the artifact. Was that that you had in your campaign or in your module? That was built into the module itself, or did you make it?
Well, sort of both. So it was an item it was the Treasure of Barlon, which was an adventure written by Molly Plant. Plant or Plants, I can't remember. But she wrote Chapel of Silence, which is in Dragon Magazine, which I'm quite fond of. And it was I can't remember if it was a scepter. You're supposed to, there was this item in there that this illusionist wanted to get. And so the way it was described was as a very powerful item, whatever. I envisioned it as an artifact. He was a 14th level illusionist, I think.
Okay, yeah.
I viewed it as an artifact or a relic. The way I guess it would be an artifact. And so I made it an artifact. And then so I picked an artifact out of the book because I think it was a scepter, and so I picked.
Okay.
I can't remember what I picked. Which scepter I did. It was one
Sure.
that could be good, neutral, or evil. And I made it evil.
Nice.
So that's what I did. That's what I did. And you guys touched it.
Horrible things happen.
And you touched it, and so that was a save versus death. And
I liked
the
it.
character didn't make a save. I thought you guys would just sort of drop it in the backpack or something, but
No.
no.
People want power. I created one. So one of my early campaigns when I was younger, I had because again, for your campaign, you're going to have to design. If you're not in Greyhawk, then you're going to have to figure out how these fit into your campaign. Because like the Eye and Hand of Vecna, they're related to Vecna. Vecna is a creature within the Greyhawk area. It's in the milieu, and you'd have to change it to your milieu. So you could call it the Eye and Hand of Bob. Bob's the evil archmage. But I had an artifact that was called the Hammer of Creation. That the idea was this mad mage enlisted a dwarf master craftsman to create this world and use this hammer to do that. And the mage was trying to do an experiment between good and evil, but as the power of building this experiment, he was losing his mind and started shifting everything to evil. So the dwarf, being good, put the hammer in the world to help balance things. So the players at first level find this hammer. Now the problem is, again, it's a giant hammer, and they had to figure out how to use its powers and discover that. So that's one way. Like the ring, they're not sure what it is, and they had to use the campaign to figure out how to use it to write the world of this experiment. So again, that was the best my 16-year-old brain could come up with at the time. But it was an artifact that had pros and cons, and again, as soon as you put this in the world, you put this thing in play, there's going to be forces around it. They're going to want to get it, both forces of evil and forces of good. That are going to want to use it. They're going to be people like Boromir who are going to be like, we should use this to defeat evil. The evil people may realize that they're in this weird experiment and want to escape from the experiment, so they want this. So there's plenty of opportunities to do that, but you have to tailor. You can't just drop, the Eye of Vecna in there and just say, "Oh, go for it." And it could be party breaking. Are you going to specifically say the hammer can only be used by certain creatures, or is it open to everyone? The Hand of Vecna is always the classic because someone eventually is going to go, I cut my hand off and put the hand on to see what happens. Well, wait a minute, you're a paladin. I don't care. I want to become an evil fighter now. And at that point, the game is going to change. And it even talks about that when artifacts will make, like Frodo, like Bilbo, they are altered from that. So that's the challenge with them. But they can be a lot of fun. They can drive your story, but you have to kind of think about that. One of the eras, I remember one of the first ones that I saw that weren't in this book, but were called artifacts, was in S3. S2, White Plume Mountain, where they had the 3 artifacts that you were supposed to get: Wave, Whelm, and Black Razor. They were considered, and one of my characters had, now whether he legitimately had Black Razor, I don't remember, but he was assassin, and Black Razor was the infamous sword that you see on the back of the cover where the guy's holding it. It looks like this obsidian piece of stone, has stars in it. Well, those are the souls of the things that it's sucked out of creatures. It has to be fed regularly. So you basically are going to turn evil if you keep using it, because the sword is going to compel you to murder so it can be fed the souls of creatures. And again, it's a great weapon. Oh, it's +3, it does this and that. Souls, but now you got to murder people all the time.
Right.
You're not there's not a lot of downtime when you have Black Razor. So, I think we've talked about it changes the player. It can be a very powerful tool to drive a campaign, but you have to use it properly. It shouldn't be destroyed easily, and that's a style of play that you're going to have to decide you want to do. If not, if you want to do the more old, going from module to module, this is not going to work probably, unless you have to then weave in the little tidbits on. Anything else from your perspective?
No, I think that covers it.
I think we did a good job on that. Okay, so
that's all right.
All right. You give it a C? What's our grade on this? Say
C+.
C+. Okay, it's above the grade.
Above our average.
Above our average, right?
We're moving up.
That's right. I like it.
We have a positive grade trend.
That's right. Well, I haven't been tracking that. I'll need to do that as well. Put it in the comments what grade there is.
Yeah, right.
And use whatever scale, because again, we have international people. C may mean I don't know how they grade things in other countries. So now it's time for our suggestion, and I'm going to go first and let Dan kind of think it. So my suggestion is, in doing research for this, because these artifacts are unique for the most part to Greyhawk, and which is the campaign that was published. I didn't know about Blackmoor when I was growing up. And the previous, I started with first edition. I still have the Gazette, the Greyhawk Gazette, Gazetteer, whatever it's called. So for me, Greyhawk is the default campaign. All the modules we bought were built in there. Yeah. So, but shortly, I don't know if Greyhawk continued past second edition. There may have been parts of it, but after that, Greyhawk disappeared. But there have been people who've continued to have what's called the living Greyhawk, which has continued forward. And so I was doing research on artifacts, and I found that the greyhawkonline.com is enthusiasts of people who have continued that, and they have the Orth Journal, and I'll put the link there, where you can see what has happened to Greyhawk since the time of the early 80s when the official Gazetteer came out. So there's this great war that happened, and the map gets changed around, and whether you want to do that or not, that's up to you.
The map got changed around.
Well, the parts of things, countries have been changed.
Like who controls what?
That's right.
Do you have Greyhawk, don't you?
Right over there. Yeah, all the way to the left. Yeah, there it is.
Should we show it? Can we take the map out to show our viewers?
Yeah, we can.
Because your suggestion, so it could just simply be Greyhawk, right? You have more than one.
Oh, I do. Well,
wow.
There's two maps. There's two
maps.
But I have two versions of it.
But you do have two versions.
I
wow.
do.
So there's two maps. This is beautiful. This is in good condition. I don't want to hurt this.
That's right. So there it is.
Is this the one that you bought? This is from back in the day?
That's right.
The one that you had?
I did.
Oh yeah, so this is, I guess, the east. That's
the east side of it. Yep.
Yeah.
So, for instance, for those playing on the podcast, we're looking at the east side of the map. On the west side, there's the part of Eus, and I remember Eus spreads out, and one of the kingdoms gets wiped out in what they've done. So there's a bunch of fan fiction, I guess you can call it that have done that. So I have two versions of that. I have this one, and I have another one. So one was my friend's, and one was mine.
How much there's a booklet that came with Greyhawk, right?
I do have that as well.
How much information was in the book? Like how much discretion? I mean, I know you can change anything you want, but generally, how much discretion did you have? If you were like, let's say I wanted to run a Greyhawk campaign. One of the things that's always concerned me is that there's so much information. I don't want to spend much time learning a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
How much discretion did Greyhawk give you? Was it terse?
Yes.
It was terse, so you would still have a lot of discretion.
And that's the beauty of Living Greyhawk. If you want to, and I think there's a philosophy, and I didn't read the whole thing, I need to read some more. But the idea is people could contribute to this, and it's kind of like the multiple DM. We decide on a world. You can pull the other one out. That has the books with it.
And are these all? I loved the crests. So
yes.
I was mesmerized by Greyhawk back in the day, and so I
Each
noticed
crest associates with a thing.
Yep. So it tells you, right? So this is 33.
Well, that would probably be on the other side. It'd be 29.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. That's the front, and that's the back. Yep. I got you. So the folio tells you what they are.
Exactly.
And then you can look it up,
and
it gives you a little bit
if you
of
look in the one next to it, same thing over there.
Right.
Pull that one up. That's the Gazetteers. There's two parts. It gives you the
thick.
Huh?
It's so thick.
Well, but that's the whole. That's one book. There's a second book that comes with it, but it says similar things. Because it gives you the calendar. It gives you the. But look at each kingdom. Here's a kingdom, Blackmoor. Tells you a little bit.
Oh,
population.
They had a kingdom called Blackmoor.
Yeah,
so that was obviously.
That's right. Homage.
That's right.
Homage to Dave Arneson. That's right.
Oh wow.
That was in the northern part. So they give you highlight who the king is and just a general thing about it.
So you could. So like, let's say that you had a city. You could probably create. I mean, these are just the major cities. So if I wanted to. Like I was interested in maybe running a campaign, and remember Barnicus, City of Barnicus, City in Peril?
So. Yep, City in Peril, yep.
For Dragon Magazine, which is on the coast.
Well, here's Blackmoor right here.
So
Blackmoor. You can put it right in Blackmoor.
So I could probably drop it somewhere in there,
exactly.
right? As, you know.
That's right. And then you could be part of this community, and now I don't know how you get part of this community, where you could add that city, if it was yours, into there. And they basically are continuing creating the Greyhawk world and fleshing it out. And so
No. It stops for me at what, 80?
84, right.
No. If it's not in here,
okay,
I'm not interested. I'm sorry.
But you are changing it yourself. You're going to change your own thing.
I made my save, but that's different.
Okay.
isn't it?
You don't. Okay, it's okay if you change it, but you don't want to have other people help you contribute.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
well, that's fine. But there are ideas that you can add to it. So again, that's what I recommend for that. So yeah, there's.
Oh yeah, and there's the. Is this volume 2?
Yeah, that's the glossography, which I didn't quite understand.
Glossography. Oh, so it like define. Oh, so it's just more information.
Yeah, it has tides and seasons.
Wow.
Terrain effects.
Oh, determining what? Oh, I didn't know that So Greyhawk has its own weather chart.
That's right.
Is it based on the one from Dragon Magazine?
You know, that's a good question.
Weather in the world. Look at that. Marshes. Wow. It's a lot to learn.
If you want, but you don't need to do all that.
Okay.
It's like you don't read the whole Encyclopedia Britannica. Or if you had one, you use it if it's a reference. If people go, oh, what's the weather out today? Oh, hold on, let me go look it up.
Does this sit out separately like this?
Yeah, it's fine. I got to put it together at some point. So,
what would be fun is to run multiple campaigns. I think we talked about this.
Right.
We're all in Greyhawk and just at different places, but at the same time, and we just talk about the general world events at the same time. That's kind of cool.
That's a version of what they're doing here, but we could do it ourselves. Absolutely.
Okay. Sorry.
In fact, one of my when I redid it for my family, when I was playing with them online through Roll20, I did Cult of the Reptile God, which is placed in Greyhawk. And I just took that part out. And again, I didn't start with the whole world. I started with, you're starting in Hohawk, which is the big town, and you're going to Orlane. And you just cut out the This is what they knew. They don't know the rest of the world. They don't know anything. So that's one way to do it. So that was my suggestion. What's your suggestion? I hope you fail your save on that.
Okay. Well, my suggestion is actually, you suggested my suggestion.
That's
but
okay.
It was a good suggestion. I agree completely with it, which is Module U1, The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, which if I recall correctly, stands for United Kingdom, right? These were modules.
From the UK, exactly.
From the UK. And it's a low-level adventure, right, for starting characters. I think it's levels 1 to 3.
Right.
But typically characters would be level 1, maybe level 2.
Right.
And it was a great low-level adventure. If I recall correctly, I don't want to give away too much for people who haven't been through it, but there's 2 parts to U1, right? So sort of the town part, and then there's a subsequent part.
That's right. There's a haunted house, and we're playing it right now. John, DM John, who is part of our group, it's just introduced us to that, and we're investigating this old banner on a cliff and trying to figure out what it is. So we just started the adventure, but I like it because it's not your typical dungeon crawl.
Exactly, right. I mean, there's an opportunity for role-playing and investigating this mystery,
Would you call it? Did you call it example of Scooby-Doo or something?
Yes, I think it's considered sort of a Scooby-Doo adventure. What's up with this haunted house? And so I haven't heard anybody who dislikes The Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. So if you're looking for a good low-level adventure, I would highly recommend.
Yeah.
I was very close to... I had a plan at one time to have sort of a pirate theme. I know it sounds funny because it sounds like something you do for a costume party, but like a pirate themed kind of, on the coast, and Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh is on the coast, and so you can wrap it into. I think I started with the Tower of Xenopus, which was the sample module from the Holmes Basic, which is on the water, and I was going to do a few other ones that were on the water as well. So if you want to have sort of a nautical-based campaign,
right,
Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh would work quite well.
Well, you are a visionary because they just released in 5th edition, because there's what's on YouTube, a whole basically pirate-based book and it's called Ghosts of the Saltmarsh or something.
Yeah.
Because they're not dumb. They're going back. They're pulling all this nostalgia because this has been 35, 40 years since this stuff was originally produced. They're like, well, let's mine this. This is gold. We'll pull all forward. The new people who've never played it will appreciate it because we'll redo it. But the old people are like, oh, nostalgia, perfect. It's like Star Wars. It's like redoing it for the new generation.
Yeah, and it's to me, it's kind of like music. So take a genre like heavy metal. Obviously, there's going to be some 90% of it no one's going to listen to unless they loved it back then. It's nostalgic. But
or if you're a teacher and you think it's smart for you to have a 13-minute song played in English, which it's one of my highlights.
That would never happen. But there's going to be some that's just classic, right? Like you hear Crazy Train, of course, is played at every sporting event, and AC/DC songs. So there's going to be like Sinister. I would assume in a module like Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh is just a good module. It's not a good 1E module,
right?
Adventure, right? It's just a good adventure.
Right, exactly.
So there's certain adventures that should be played, I would think.
Well, the format is definitely good. I mean, the structure of it's not typical, and so far, there's a lot of hooks. I think again, I don't know the module. I don't want to know the module because I'm playing it. But from what I can tell, the setup already is way different, and it's manageable because John's doing a good job. There's a town, there's haunted, and you're going to this thing, and he's done it's good description of what it is, and clearly we've already had some clues that something's going on that's not, quote unquote, it's not a ghost thing. There's some things that clearly some monster or humans are doing things. It's not spirits. We haven't met any spirits yet.
So you're the meddling kids.
We are the meddling kids.
So you didn't go through Saltmarsh back in the day?
No.
Oh, so you're in for a treat. That's awesome. That's great.
That's right.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Haven't done it. If we survive, if we survive, which we haven't had, I will say John is definitely in your vein of let the dice fall where they may.
Right.
Village of Hamlet, we were eviscerated.
So. Yeah, I saw you failed. Who fails Village of Hamlet?
Apparently we do.
You didn't kill the baddie?
I don't think so.
Unless the baddie was that giant rat.
Right. Unless the baddie was one of the bugbears that was killed. Yes.
Bugbear number 3.
Bugbear number 3. Yeah. Well, the problem was I missed one session, and so I went from.
So we're blaming the others.
No, we're doing well. To I get there and it was like whatever the last. I don't know. Custer's last stand. We're sitting in like this room that couldn't be closed. I'm like, well, I can't say anything because I'm unconscious, and we met our untimely death. But one did survive. One of our players did escape.
Wait, only one player survived?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
That's what I said.
Yeah, he really is.
Right.
Following in my vein. Wow.
Yeah.
Only one.
One survived. Do you like plot development? You like characters? You got to get past first level.
So you rolled up new character. Oh, that's right. So you rolled up. So what? Yeah.
That's right. Now I'm
the brother of.
I'm Dwinkly Pew. Dwinkly Pew.
Yeah, your brother is.
Crinkly Pew.
Right. Crinkly.
What did you call him? It's your.
Clinky.
Kinky Pew.
No. Clinky.
Clinky Pew. Clinky Pew.
What? What's wrong with the normal name? I don't know why.
Well, I like.
Why did you put Christmas Pew? I don't know what that means.
Well, okay, that's a South Park reference.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Yeah. What is that? I haven't seen South Park.
The Christmas poo is this. I don't know where it came from, but it's this animated piece of poo that is from Christmas.
No, this is Pew.
I know, but I said Pew, but I said poo.
Clinky Pew.
So, but now
you're a gnome.
I'm a gnome fighter illusionist.
So what's happened to you? Well, you know what I said. You know what the saying is.
I said once you go gnome, you can't. This is right.
You never go home. Once you go gnome, you never go home.
I'm Winkly Poo. Why? Because I'm going to either embrace this. What is it? When you fear or mock something, you either embrace it and totally kill it for everyone else, which is my goal. But I may enjoy it. So.
That's awesome. So you've gone gnome.
I've gone gnome.
And gnome illusionist.
Illusionist fighter illusionist.
That's awesome. That's
with
great.
a 13 strength, so I'm very powerful.
That's great.
But I have high dex, high intelligence, and
you speak with burning animals.
I've multiple times. I've talked because we were going through the forest. Well, now we're in Forest of Doom. No, you're in Forest of Doom. Where were we? No, we're Secret Saltmarsh. Yeah, so everywhere I'm going, I'm trying to speak to burning animals.
Yes, you should.
Right.
This is really underused. I can't tell you how many DMs seem surprised when I play a gnome and I say, are there any animals around?
Right. Well, you saw me when we played your game. I was trying to, and
I let you. I was pretty right.
You let me.
What?
You definitely nerfed it. I should have known exactly where the forest was. There should have been a collection of squirrels who would come together and guide us directly to the place. That's not what happened.
Well, but the problem is, what's the radius for a squirrel? I mean,
I would talk to the one squirrel and say, "Go bring your friends together." Like, it's not Snow White. Was it like Snow White or which one? Where all the birds and the animals come
together? They're not your friend. You gave them food and it got a little bit more friendly.
Well, of course, they're my friend. Any creature that could kill them instantaneously is talking to them. They should be.
He was up in a tree.
I could have
slayed. What are you, a flying gnome?
I could have destroyed.
You destroy it with your axe, your dwarvish axe that you hurl 30
right.
feet, comes back with a squirrel on it.
Yeah, I could fear the fact that, I mean, apparently these squirrels are not very amazed by the fact that some creature not a squirrel is talking to them. It must happen all the time.
They're like, I know if you throw that axe, you're going to cause 5 to 20 hit points of damage to all your buddies.
Okay.
So I'm calling your bluff.
I see. Well, that squirrel is, and that's the problem. These squirrels are they have agency. They're smart. They're smarter than most of the other players.
Until you talk to them.
Yeah, then they become stupid. That's right. Then they become stupid. They know their motivation. They know everything.
Right.
They know the geopolitics of the world.
I have to go potty now.
That's right. I gotta chew on a nut.
And then go potty and sleep. And repeat.
All of a sudden they must run into traffic. Traffic.
So when you play, you become the typical player. You think everybody else and all animals are just there for you.
Right.
They're not.
That's why I'm playing him, because it's like I assume that was the case, but apparently not.
So in other words, I recommend you won.
Yes,
Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh.
And I don't think I remembered to invoke that, even though I had just played a gnome before. So I'm going to.
You should recommend gnomes maybe next time.
No, I'm not going to.
We'll see how you do that.
Well, and again, I did use my detect unsafe floors, which I detected, but somehow I still was an idiot and fell through, so I'm not sure.
Before playing an illusionist, always ask your DM, have you ever played an illusionist? See, you're in good shape because you've got Jezebel.
Right.
Your DM had Jezebel.
Right.
Famously of Jezebel's corner.
Right.
And so
corner
he should be.
Corner of what is that? Prestidigitation? Is that prestidigitation or fortune telling? Fortune telling.
Yes, correct. So you should, unless he's going to be tougher on you, because he wasn't illusionist, expect more from you. Yeah. I hold you to a high standard.
I'm sure it's not going to work out. I'm sure it's going to be a train wreck. So, with that said, next time I think we'll do swords and maybe one other thing of Magic Items. We'll wrap up Magic Items because we got a couple of good items. The Undead I think would be a good one. Talk about detecting and various other things. Paladins maybe.
Burrowing animals.
Burring.
Can I speak to
retainers? And I think we talked about retainers, but we may need to do more about retainers and NPCs. Yeah, can I talk to burrowing animals? That's a 2-hour segment right there.
Yeah, at least probably 2-parter.
Burrowing animals.
Well, the Hobbit movie was,
Right. If you can take a 200 page book and make it to 10 hours of movies, why can't we take burrowing animals?
Well, there's going to be a long discussion of how often do you have to burrow? Right, things like that.
Well,
how intelligent are these animals? What do they say to you? What do they know? What's their radius?
And like for me, I know that I asked if there was an owl that was a burrowing owl, and you had to determine whether the owls that were there were not burrowing owls.
Well, yeah. When I said he wasn't burrowing at the time, and he was pretty large. That'd be pretty big burrow.
You seem to adjudicate that really quickly. I don't think you really spent time figuring out.
I did not.
Of the percentages of owls we'd run into, how many of them were burrowing?
No. This one's not burrowing.
So as a DM, you're going to have, if you have a gnome, you're going to have to figure out all the woodland creatures that are there, determine do they have a burrowing subspecies, and then come up with a table to figure out the percentage chance of them being burrowing.
And then well, let's not give away too much.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice separate podcast.
That's a teaser.
Shall we just keep going?
That's right. No.
Let's just do it now.
No.
You sure?
I need to do more research on the types of burrowing animals. I don't think
You're not ready.
I'm not ready to do burrowing animals. So,
okay.
All right.
If they've listened this long, you should tell them the great news about our major
award. Oh, yes, that's right.
Major award.
I forgot.
You've been recognized.
Right. So, yeah. So, again, thank you for all those who are listening. We've gotten lots more emails. You can listen to us on iTunes.
Lots
you can listen
more.
to us on Google.
3.
We have correspondence now.
From one.
From multiple people.
More than one.
See? That's right. You can listen to iTunes, Google Play. Of course, we're on YouTube, which is if you're watching the live stream. We do live stream. We try to do it Saturday mornings in the Eastern Standard Time. And then we put that out there. But we got news. It was a little bit older, so I don't know the exact stats. I have to go that as per Chartable, we are a charting gaming podcast in Sweden.
Wow. What are we, number 3? Number 4?
Close.
Okay, what, 10?
12? A little south of
Top
that.
20?
Not
Top
quite.
50? Top 100? Top 200.
It's better than 1,000. We're not the last ranked
Are we in the
podcast.
top 500?
Yes, we are. In
Finally.
Sweden.
Sweden.
Thank you to our Swedish listeners.
Thank you. Wait, why'd you put an S on that?
Thank you to whoever
Our Swedish listener.
Thank you to anyone who inadvertently clicked on our link more than once. From Sweden, because we are ranked as one of the top gaming podcasts.
Yes. What number?
Well, this was old information.
So it could be much higher now.
I assume it is. This was back in April.
That was last month.
Yeah, but early April, late March, early April,
Right.
something like that. And I should probably convert it into hexadecimal because it would probably sound better. But 339.
Wow. So we're the 339th.
That's right.
What is it? Gaming podcast?
Gaming podcast in Sweden.
There are 339
Yes.
gaming.
There
are exactly.
No, I said we are
339.
not. I can say with certainty we are not the least popular.
How did you know that? How did
because when I looked at gaming
there
podcasts,
were people below us?
Yes.
It wasn't like the following 5,000 are tied for 339?
No.
Wow.
There are people below us. I will look, and now I have to sign up for Chartables, which I haven't done, but they sent me an unsolicited email proclaiming this is like a Christmas story where you got the prize for that's unsolicited, the same kind of thing.
Now you're going to put this somewhere, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it says the 300, we need to.
I'm going to put that on Twitter.
Market this.
I'm going to put that on Twitter.
The 339th most popular
right.
gaming podcast in Sweden. I will sign up for podcasts just to see that. That's awesome.
So if you're Swedish,
thank you,
and you live in Sweden and you listen to this podcast, if you could just have one other person.
If you had just one other person,
we could move up to like 330.
Yes. Tell your friends in Sweden.
You have a direct opportunity to change the fabric of podcasting.
Okay, here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is not a deal. This is not an offer. It's legally binding. But this is what I say.
Right.
If Sweden can get us up to like the top 10, we really need to think about a pilgrimage to Sweden.
Right.
Don't you think?
I agree.
Going to someone's basement.
Right.
In Sweden.
I assume they have basements there, yeah.
Right. And
that's the top 10 challenge. If we can become one of the top 10